That is filth!
They're all falling bit by bit, piece by piece.
Can someone stop this man?
Grab your grandmother or your father, your mother, get them sat down on the sofa. You don't want to be missing this match.
Oh, wait, what? Are you serious?
They crack it open in the nick of time. Oh my word, from the top ropes.
This is Watchpoint, presented by State Farm. Welcome to the Watchpoint pre-show presented by State Farm. Zoe along with Costa as well as Reinforced for your pre-show. It is week 26 of the Overwatch League. Gentlemen, are we excited?
Yeah, born excited. Born excited.
Oh,
Wow.
okay, statement. I'll check in with your mother later today to make sure you are truthful
Please
to me.
don't.
Well, I'm specifically excited this week because once more we got rid of the hero pool. That means chaos will reign again. Maybe, probably not. Yeah.
Like, last week was chaos.
It actually kind of was. But based on not having any hero pools this week, Costa, what are your expectations? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I think it's really important to note going into this week. So no hero pools, but they're also the Genji nerfs that have shown up on live aren't in the Overwatch League yet. So Genji is still incredibly strong. For me personally, I think we're probably going back to what we saw in the Summer Showdown playoffs, where you're going to have the double shield with the Genji, putting a lot of resources into allowing that Genji to just kill everybody, which was exciting for most. But I'm just really interested to see who can rise up again if we're going to see the same teams sort of get to the top and get to the finals.
Yeah, I expect similar things to you, probably Summer Showdown meta. But I'm curious to see if any teams stick with the Wrecking Ball, because we saw some teams get comfortable with the Wrecking Ball these past couple of weeks. Chengdu was one of those teams that we know have a fantastic Wrecking Ball in Among. So are those teams going to still stick with Wrecking Ball? That is the big question for me.
I don't know. Have they ever stopped playing Wrecking Ball over at...
They did for a little bit, but, you know...
Yeah, they did
18
for a
wins
little
still
bit.
was nothing to, really get excited about. So I hope they stick with the Wrecking Ball for sure.
That's fair. Now, of course, with all these changes and with the games which happened last week, we did have to rearrange our rankings a little bit. But however, this very week is a little bit special because this week's power rankings presented by HyperX are actually done by Costa.
Yes.
Yeah.
My time to shine.
It's time to shine. Costa, what you got for us? Walk us through it.
All right, so we walked into the room that Johnny had built, and we threw it out the window. Okay, so we started again. But honestly, a lot of what Johnny had was completely right. The main ones to note that people are going to be like, what is happening, is Dallas at number 5. This is obviously a gamble because this 5 to 10 region is really hard. So I just threw them in there. I took Toronto from 5 to 9 just because they've disappointed me so much. And then, the APAC region stays pretty similar. The main notable one is Hangzhou Spark sitting there at the 7th place.
Yeah. I mean, I think these are really good rankings, Costa. I'm really proud of you. You've done a great job here.
Wait, what?
Now I just feel bad because I always make fun of his rankings.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
These
this
are
is
perfect.
not
These are
this is not
perfect
how I
rankings,
thought
yeah.
this is gonna pan out.
No, they're really good, Costa. I'm very proud of you.
Thanks,
They were
Johnny.
really good.
For some reason, that's worse than him mocking you. And I don't
Yeah,
know
I know.
why. Well, let's take a look at the current standings, as we are only having this weekend left for teams to, go up and down in their ranks in order to get a better seed for the Countdown Cup. Currently, it's still the same, people on top, so no changes yet. Of course, there's still a lot to be switched around or changed. Now, remember that all the Countdown Cup action kicks off next Friday, August 7th, and there will be a bonus for everyone watching as well, because there will be a double token weekend. So when you watch the overwatchleague.com or on the Owl app, you'll actually get double the tokens. That's exciting. However, for now, every match counts, guys, for these teams. They do want to have the better seed and be able to pick their opponent. Now, for everything you need to know about the Countdown Cup, we got Sideshow walking you through it.
In the May Melee, 2 juggernauts took their place at the top of the league.
The Shanghai Dragons have done it. The reverse sweep.
No! That's all it's going to take for San Francisco.
In the Summer Showdown, David toppled Goliath
No one can stop Sparkle right now.
twice.
Prong into the back line. What a performance.
We've come a long way this season, but before we begin the final act, there's one chapter left in our unforgettable tournament saga. 3 days, 2 brackets, and one last chance to dominate your region. This is the Countdown Cup. Since our first tournament, the league has been divided into a 13-team North American region and a 7-team Asia-Pacific region. Over weeks 24 to 26, all 20 teams played qualifier matches, 4 for each NA squad and 3 apiece in APAC. These results have been used to seed tournament brackets for each region, with the 13th and 12th seeds in North America squaring off for the last spot in a final qualifier. From there, it gets personal with our signature selection show.
It's not nice, man. That's really not nice.
In NA, seeds 5 to 7 choose their first tournament opponents. They can either pick on a lower seed or settle a score against a rival. In APAC, seeds 2 and 3 get selection honors, with the first seed taking a bye. After round 1, APAC will continue their final 4, while seeds 1 to 3 in North America get their own round of selections after a first round bye. After that, it's down to 4. The prizes remain the same, but that doesn't mean they're any less valuable. $275,000 in total is up for grabs, split between the 2 regions and awarded based on placing. Plus, the $5,000 bounty for any tournament win is still in play. But with playoffs fast approaching, everyone has their eyes on the big prize: wins. In both regions, the champions will have 3 wins added to their record, 2 for the runners-up and 1 each for the 3rd and 4th place finishers. As for the rules, let's start with a big one: no hero pools. Match format is first to 3 until finals, where we go first to 4. The higher seed picks the first map, and it's loser pick from there on out. If a map ends in a draw, the team that picked goes again. Now that we've got all that out the way, there's only one thing left for these teams to do: finish strong. Don't miss out on all the action. Going live at 1 p.m. on August 8th. Only on YouTube Gaming.
Thank you so much, Sideshow. So here is the schedule for today. Let's take a look at which teams will be playing it out for us on this lovely Friday. We're kicking things off with the Dallas Fuel going up against the Philadelphia Fusion, and afterwards we're going to see the LA Valiant taking on the Houston Outlaws. Now, the Fuel are currently 2-0 in our Countdown Cup standings. However, they are facing the number 1 team, the Philadelphia Fusion. Costa, how impressed are you really with that 2-0 right now, though?
All right, so we did talk about the Dallas Fuel being at number 5 on my power rankings, but I don't think you can overhype this team right now. They do have Onigod playing in over Decay, which a lot of people are surprised about, but they've been 2-0 so far in the Countdown Cup. We need to keep in mind that that wasn't against the strongest teams that we have in the North American region, and now they're going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. So I'm just really excited to see if this Fuel team can keep the momentum going against the Philadelphia Fusion, because we've seen how impressive Philly is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the big question for this team with Onigod once again in the lineup is Onigod actually here to stay, right? Because everyone's been raving about Decay all season. We remember his Widowmaker in May Melee, etc. But now Onigod consistently in the lineup for this team. And we take a look at his Tracer stats this season per 10 minutes, and it is quite shocking, you know, a bit surprising, because now we get into the conversation with Shax, etc. Obviously, these stats are inflated a little bit by playing weaker opponents, but still impressive nonetheless to actually see these stats by the rank. So eliminations first, 24.9 per 10 minutes as Tracer. Final blows as well, 10 per 10 minutes, 3rd in that rank. So these are very impressive stats for Onigod on that Tracer. But the big conversation is he better than Decay? Should he start over Decay? I think it's been very curious to see how the Dallas Fuel are playing around with their roster and integrating different hitscan players into the lineup. So I'm curious to see more from this Dallas Fuel team, what they have in store for Philly today.
I want to hit on that a little bit as well, because I think the Onigod and Decay are good in their own rights. I don't think they are like one in the same. Decay is a very put the entire team on my back and run with it, right? We've seen him have so many world-class performances and just kill everybody. Well, Onigod, I don't think really has that impact. He's really working around his team, and it seems to be working better for this Dallas Fuel lineup. Instead of them trying to just keep up with Decay, it more seems like they're more in sync, and that is why I think they're getting more success. Because I don't think Onigod is better than Decay, but it seems to be working for the Dallas Fuel.
Is that going to work against the Fusion? I mean, this is a top team
That's
now.
the question.
That
So,
is
do you
the
need
top
explosive
question.
impact?
Not only are they one of the top teams, they are also incredible clutch, and they showed that in full force last week when they pulled off a reverse sweep against the LA Gladiators. So, I don't know. Is there anything new about this team which you think that viewers should know or their opponents need to know?
Well, if we take a look at this, Zoe, we can see the fact that Carpe is missing from the starting lineup. And, this would be a big surprise. We could be here and talk about, oh my God, Carpe's on the lineup, what's happening? But I actually spoke with Christopher from the Philadelphia Fusion this morning, and he clearly said that, hey, we have different roles for all of our players, and it's all going to make sense on map 1. And, when we got a lot of good players on our team, and we'll keep rotating around to what makes the perfect fit. So, no big takeaways from here, other than the fact that Philadelphia Fusion know what they're doing, and they probably have something in store. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think this leans way more towards the Brawl style. We see Funny Astro, and he's usually only there right now to play that Lucio, and he's been so good in it. Also, Ivy coming in is the big question mark as well for me, because usually, thus far this season, we've only seen him play the Mei. So this makes me think they're going to play a more Brawl Mei style and just sort of run at their opponent. We've seen that work successfully against this double shield slow style.
Do you guys expect this to just be a matter of control map kind of rearrangement, or do you see that continuing throughout the rest of this match?
Well, we'll have to see what the meta is a little bit, right? Because we speculated in the past as well, are we going to see the Summer Showdown meta, where the Philadelphia Fusion were so good, where they EQ. Genji had nice follow-up, he made those big plays, we remember, right? So that is going to be the question. Are we going to see that meta? Are we going to see a bit of the meta evolving a little bit, so we see other compositions? So there's a lot of question marks here, and we don't really know what to expect. I think we're going to see more EQO down the line, and we're actually going to see a lot of Genji in play, because Genji is still so strong in this meta, right? But so it seems to me that they have something in store, especially for map 1, but then we'll see if they substitute later on in the series.
Absolutely. Well, I love me a good game plan. If we're looking at the second match of the day, the LA Valiant and the Houston Outlaws, both teams, well, gotta say it how it is, looking a little shaky. Costa, what do you think the Valiant need to do to clean up their play this weekend?
We got to keep hitting on it every time we talk about the Valiant. Their biggest weakness right now is that they haven't looked strong in the Genji meta. The KSF has been coming in a lot more consistently as of late, but he just hasn't really been able to step up to the plate. The only time we really think of Valiant as this sort of upper echelon team is when they are able to play Shax on that Tracer and KSP on that hit scan. Any other time, they don't really seem to have that aggression, that coordination that really gives the team the space to thrive. So I'm interested to see if they're going to try running it back on KSF, or if they're just going to try and play their own style, break the meta, put Shax on Tracer, put KSP on that hit scan, and I think they could beat a lot of teams playing this. I think they could beat the Houston Outlaws if they just played this, but it's whether or not they'll have higher aspirations in this meta right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've seen when the Valiant actually integrate Shax, they have much better win rate because his Tracer is just that insane, okay? Shax is one of the best Tracers in the league, and it's really what is making it work for the Valiant. So I would hope that they find a way to integrate him into the lineup. Here you see, these are what good Tracer ranks looks like, okay? 12.3 final blows per 10 minutes first, 1.6 solo kills per 10 minutes, that's first as well. I mean, the numbers are up there. He's insane on this hero, and it is a big reason as to why the Valiant have been so good throughout this season. Shax on this Tracer contributes a lot of impact into these team fights. So that is going to be the question. Are they going to find a way to integrate Shax into this lineup consistently, or will they now have to adapt in this new meta where we might see more Ashe and Genji, etc.? I think the LA Valiant has a lot to figure out in the span of a week before the Countdown Cup.
No.
I love that his deaths is 24th. His deaths are 24th. And if you've seen Shax play, it's funny because you know exactly why that is. He goes in, he pulse bombs somebody, he recalls. Most Tracers at that point are like, okay, well, I have to wait for my recall before I go aggressive. No, not Shax. He comes back in, he double blinks into the enemy, and he's going for all of it. That is why his damage is so high. That is why his kills are so high, but that is his style. Just raw aggression. That's why it's awesome to see him play.
Some alpha energy, man. That's how you assert dominance on the server. I respect it. Now, we need to shift gears and take a look at their opponents. The Outlaws, they're currently 0-2 in the Countdown Cup standings, and they dropped the ball against the Fuel and also against the Washington Justice last weekend. Who or what is their win condition this weekend, Reinforce?
I mean, it has to be Dante, right? I think he is the best player on this team. They did some wacky things against the Justice last week around. They substituted some players back and forth between maps, and they just flexed around with their Genji players, etc. Just keep Dante on a hit scan hero like the Tracer or the Sombra, because we know he does it so well, and that's a cornerstone of your lineup, and that can really make it work for this team. So I think the Justice loss was a bit of a one-off, just personally. I think they came in with a pretty poor game plan. They had hydration on the Wrecking Ball, which in theory could work well for this team, but the maps didn't really work out too well. Washington Justice looked really comfortable playing that meta as well, so I think it was a bit of a one-off for the Houston Outlaws to lose against the Washington Justice. Wouldn't worry about it too much, but moving forward, please keep Dante on this Tracer because he has a ton of impact. And if they know you can't play the Tracer, just keep him in the lineup on another hit scan hero. You know, don't necessarily force the Genji too much. It's essentially what I'm trying to say.
And we saw this earlier in the season, and this is the woes of the Houston Outlaws thus far. Like, they seem to have something working out, and then they think they need to change it up. They need to, maneuver pieces. We saw with the support line with Repel and Raucus earlier in the season. They were doing that with Blase and Dante in the series. No other team in the league is switching their Genji in and out because he's just such an important cornerstone of your roster. So I want to just see them stick with it. Even if they do just play Dante on the Genji, I want them to have a consistent DPS next to him. Either pick Linksa for that hit scan or pick Blase and have him play something else, because right now whatever they were doing isn't working, and this Valiant match is so important for them right now for their fans and their team morale moving further into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is the last weekend before the Countdown Cup, so every match matters for these teams. Let's see what they have in store for us a little later today. But we still have some time here on our Watchpoint pre-show. And as you know, we'd like to have fun with things. Not only having fun, however, we also want to, deliver some knowledge and some insights. So we're tossing around a lot of ideas for new segments. And this week we decided to not just come in with one new segment, not two, no, three. We got three for you. Reinforce, maybe introduce your segment here first.
Yeah, so we're starting out with the best segment of the three, and this is what I've been waiting for all year. It's Reinforce's Reinhardt Rainbows. Let's go, buddy. And we're doing a bit of a throwback to some of the best Reinhardt plays this year. This is really what gets me excited. This is what gets me going. Let's just jump straight into it. Show me the highlights. Show me the perfect shatters that I've been wanting to see all year. And I want to see some other main tank players in the league replicate these moving forward, because that's what it's really about. So we got Dreamer and we got Guangzhou ready to go. Remember this play? Remember Dreamer just so dropping the hammer, just jumping on the ledge and just shattering the entire of the fuel? But that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. Guangzhou wanted to prove that he could have Reinhardt plays as well. So what do? We go to Eichenwalde later on in the series, and Guangzhou just drops the hammer in the spawn. Incredible performance by both Reinhardts. One of the best matches all season. Show me the plays. Show me the plays of Guangzhou. Wait, this is Dreamer again. Dreamer just destroying your opponents more.
It's still so good,
more Reinhardt plays. And so I really wanted to show Guangzhou as well, because it was really good. He was in Spawn on Eichenwalde and just shattered all of Valiant. So that was sick. But for now, Dreamer. We're taking a look at this play for the fourth time. Love it. Love
Dreamer's
the Reinhardt
had
plays.
a lot of crazy shatters throughout this season as well. He doesn't get talked a lot about on this Valiant lineup, but he had that crazy one on Hanamura's second point as well. I think it was in the May Melee. He's had some really impactful shatters, and we think of Gig for
There
just
it
his
is!
rogue. Oh, there it is.
There it is, dude!
That was also a sick shatter, just on the fact that it was just like, you're like, oh my god, LA Valiant's coming back. They can win this. Rain almost has beat, and then he just drops the hammer. It's just done. It's like dropping a mic.
This is the best thing ever. This is literally, I could watch Reinhardt highlights like forever.
Just
Actual
alpha.
Chad. Like, he's such a Chad. Such an
It
alpha.
is. It's so easy to whiff that hammer, honestly. So if you're hitting a big one, you're actually a god.
Gold.
So, yeah, pure gold. That's the money.
Kaiser
right
throwback
there.
at some point, but not today.
Another day.
Can't wait to
Another
see
day.
that Reinforced
For a rainy day.
shatter compilation. Now, Costa, you also conjured up a new segment. What you got for us?
Alright, so no one cares about tanks, let's be honest. We all love Overwatch. Us support guys, we gotta rise up, and I am here with customer support.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we're here. We have supports clutching it out, having high impact moments within this series, because supports seem to not get any love when they make these big impact plays. We're always talking about the big Reinhardt shatters or all the DPS kills. Okay, the supports are doing the Lord's work behind the scenes, and we see this thus far. Just last week, we saw Violet on that Zenyatta getting multiple kills each team fight. Then we have Shaz as well doing the same thing on that Baptiste. He had an awesome window on the second point of Volskaya Industries on his Baptiste where he just absolutely slaughters everyone, and we're probably going to see that in just a second. And then obviously we have Fighting Astro just claiming he's a god because he is a god and he's better than most DPS players, and just boops that Winston off the edge, gets like 30% of his ult charge. You know, the supports, those are the people that really keep you alive, but they're also the people doing the work. This is the Shaz player I was talking about just here. He kills like 3 people. Without this window and without this damage that he's putting out, it just wouldn't have been possible. And we see that more and more. And that's why there are so many support players in the MVP candidate lineups coming and moving forward this season.
You know, I have a bit of a saying that I like to play with, and it's if you win the fights fast enough, you don't need any healing. So, you know,
I mean, it's true.
It's a bit
On
optional
paper,
whether you want healing or not.
That's working out. However, everyone who's playing, you know, in my ranks, please don't. Heed to that advice if you can. I don't know. I honestly, I really enjoyed last week. We saw so much really bloodthirsty Zenyatas. Like seeing a Zenyatta pop is just so much joy to like witness something like that.
So I would have been happy. It would have been pleased.
Absolutely.
Salvador is smiling.
Boobs for the boob god!
I want to bring up a stat I remember seeing as well that the stats guys gave us in our packet leading into this week. Twilight right now on healing on his Baptiste, I believe is 37th on healing out of all Baptiste. That's Twilight just being a pure DPS player for the San Francisco Shock on that Baptiste, and you can't even knock it because he has like #1 damage as well.
It's really rough if your backline is as deadly as your front line. Like, what you gonna do as an opponent? I feel like literally after every game we throw a name in the hat for this is gonna be an MVP candidate. Look at him go. So this one was tougher. Who would you ideally see on top of a DPS compilation, Costa?
Okay, so I'm a big Fleta fan. I think that the glow up that we're going to use right now is the classic word. He's been so good this season on so many different heroes. You can make a highlight reel on so many different characters, and he is one of the reasons the Shanghai Dragons have been so good this season.
Yeah, well, here are just a few select numbers, because that's all you can do when you look at these damage dealers. You can just throw out numbers. We have numbers for days. Our stats guys
numbers for days.
The stats guys are throwing them at us, and we don't even know what to do anymore. I mean, just looking at that makes me slightly nauseous, but also really impressed. All of these players and so many more are just popping off left and right on the server, and I feel like almost every team has one damage dealer at least who's leading in some category somewhere on our
some
servers.
have has. Yeah, some of them has. You know, we really show the highlights here. I mean, I think Shax is a standout. We already talked about Shax, but he plays his Tracer like a Reinhardt, so I can appreciate that. You know, just goes in.
His Tracer like a Reinhardt.
Love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, can't argue with that. Sparkle definitely had an insane. Wow, who's that?
Wow.
That was a really good Genji.
It's so
Look at that one dominating the kill feed. Interesting.
Wow, so someone for MVP. I'm sorry, I'm changing all my predictions. I'm changing it. Actually, now that I see Happy on my screen, I wanted to talk about he has #1 scope crit accuracy for average for the season at 35%. Can you imagine
That's
that
insane.
in season 1? Oh my!
We also had some amazing.
What is happening?
This keep coming out of here.
Listen, I thought they're gonna throw my name in the hat and no one will notice because we're throwing out so many of so many damage dealing players. So why can't it be me?
That's true. That's true.
Throwing it out there. If Super can do it, I can do it too. That was how I felt about that. But honestly, honestly
please.
true. We do have just so many talented players, and I can't wait to see who will be selected as the MVP candidate at the very end of the season. I very much hope to see more than just DPS players in there, but I think recently we shifted a lot and seen a lot of off tanks, main tanks, and even supports getting a lot of love in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Amon being in the list there, you know, because of his wrecking ball. No, I'm just kidding. No, I couldn't. That was a bit too far. I couldn't do it. Not with a straight face. But I do think there's a lot of great, you know, flex supports player, for example. We got like Alarm and Violet, like Costa hit on as well, that have had a lot of impact this year. And then we look at the off tanks, you know, Fury, Krong, etc., Void. So there's a big mix of players, regardless of role, and that's really a good thing to see this year compared to the last 2 years.
Absolutely. And now, of course, with so many great players and so many good teams, predictions are always tough. We never know who's showing up. We only get the starting 6, of course, for the first match of the day. So making predictions prior to having any insight is tough. However, our guest spot is still at the very bottom, and that's why we brought in some good reinforcements today. The rap god himself, Mr. Uber, is going to help out, trying at least, to elevate the guest spot standings. But for now, it's still me on top, Reinforce coming in second, and Costa, you know, on his heels, still trying to break into the top 2 here. You reckon there's any shifts today? Let's take a look at the predictions. Can there be any shifts today? I think the last 2 weeks we've just been all at the same page.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
surprise!
There it is.
Come on! I want one chance this week to just overtake Zoe.
Well,
just
you have to go for a very.
Why don't you go for Dallas then?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a
It's
chance.
That'd be wrong! That'd be the wrong prediction! I'm not gonna predict wrong, I need to predict right, and Zoe needs to do wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
but
we'll see.
That's it might happen. I don't know. We still have a lot of matches coming your way this weekend.
I'm
right?
overtaking you
We
this
still have 2 more.
weekend, Zoe.
Oh, okay. Is that another threat? You coming for my
Yep.
throne again?
Yep.
I'm going to overtake both of you. I'm going to go ridiculous tomorrow, okay? I'm going to choose all the crazy
Ridiculous
predictions.
tomorrow!
That is a ridiculous statement, Costa. Let's be realistic.
I want
Let's
to see
be
you go
realistic.
ridiculous tomorrow.
I can't
Do
wait. It's going to be interesting. It definitely helps when there's something on stake when it comes to predictions. I enjoy having different predictions than you guys. For some reason, it just makes it more exciting to watch it with you.
It's super exciting, yeah. I'm a bit disappointed we don't have like a reward system, you know? Like we should have
Yes.
put something on the line. Like
No, we did though.
Yeah.
We said
Cool.
that the winner will choose the punishment for the loser of our predictions at the end of the season, which is very soon.
punishment.
Yeah, a punishment. So it's not going to be a reward for the winner. It's just going to be a punishment for the loser. I'm pretty sure I came up with that
Because
idea.
that
That
really
sounds like
needs
a silly
Zoe not
thing.
to win.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we
Zoe's
really,
evil. She's gonna
we got to
conjure up
band
some
together,
That
okay?
is
Some ridiculous
very
thing.
true. You might be in trouble at the end of the season. However, for now, thank you everyone for watching the Watchpoint pre-show presented by State Farm. We will be back with the first game break after the first 2 maps. But for now, let's just enjoy the show.
Overwatch League online play is brought to you by Xfinity. Experience gamer-grade internet with Xfinity X5.
And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renter's insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Welcome back, everyone, to the final week of Countdown Cup qualifiers. ZP here with Jake. And Jake, we're going to get right into it. It's a Fuel taking on the Fusion. And this is a matchup that almost in a way is must-win for the Fuels. They try and even things out in the standings. And for the Fusion, it's a matchup where they just want to continue to win, put themselves at the very top.
Yeah, at this point, they're taking victory laps, all but assured that they're going to be, one of the top seeds going in, of course, to that postseason. But I think the question for the Fusion now is less about being a high seed. It's more about, are you the 1 seed? That's the sort of standard they're working with now, which sort of underscores, I think, what an underdog matchup this is for the Dallas Fuel. They're really going to need to kick it to high gear this game.
And you take a look at the Dallas starting 6. I mean, this is the starting 6 we've been seeing a lot from Dallas as of late. It's minus Decay plus Onigod. Onigod, though, been having some pretty good appearances as of late. The question is it going to be enough to topple the Fusion?
Yeah, that definitely is on everyone's mind here with Decay out of the roster. A player who looked like a real saving grace for the Fuel at the start of the season. Now Onigod taking over. To be fair, he had a little bit of a rough debut game, but I think after getting those nerves out, just playing in the high stakes matches, he's delivered more consistent performances since that moment. So I think his Ashe play has been top tier as well. So it's not, I think, a total loss for the Dallas Fuel. I think they can still pull this out. They just need to play really well as a team.
And they're going to have to do that against an incredibly stacked starting 6 here for the Fusion, where, the Fusion, they like playing around their DPS starters, where it's going to be Ivy and Hisu here on control, but they're also bringing in Funny Astro from the very beginning. No secret weapon memes here. No, he's in here from the start, and this is still a scary Fusion starting lineup.
Definitely, they've been a bit unpredictable as far as what roster they come in, but what has been predictable is that they're always strong. And I honestly think this might be an instance of Philadelphia's confidence, bringing in Ivy and Hisu over the likely, first string EQO and Carpe, at least based off their great performance, in that summer showdown. So I think for Ivy and Hisu, though, these aren't weak players, right? These aren't players who are going to roll over for nothing. They are still really skilled. So especially Hisu in the hit scan. Ivy, mostly we saw him on the May previously, but I'm interested to see what flex DPS he comes out on today.
Well, with us going to Ilios as the first map, where if it was Nepal, you'd go, oh, this makes all the sense in the world, right? You play the Mayan village because of course you would. Now we're hanging to Ilios. Do you still think we'll see the May on at least one of these stages?
Honestly, I'm kind of hoping so, just because Ivy, I think, is one of the best Mays in the entire Overwatch League right now. However, I think it's very possible that they could just play the stock meta, right? Put Ivy on the Genji. He is a flex DPS player, regardless of his specialization. He's a strong Genji for sure. I think pretty much every strong flex DPS player has at least some comfort playing Genji. They've experienced the hero to some extent, so I'm excited to see what we see from Ivy. I think there's a lot of variability here. He could bring out a lot of different heroes. For Hisu, I want us to see the Ashe. I think that's been his best hero. I think the Ashe and the McCree in particular, he looks really, really confident on, very aggressive. That's what I like to see out of the Fusion. And then for the support line, I'm guessing this means Alarm is going to go back to the Batiste. And I think that carry support role, as opposed to the main support role, is a little bit more fitting for a player like Alarm.
Now, thinking back to the Dallas side of the equation here, where you're the Fuel, you're trying to right the ship right now. You've had a very up and down season. You're one game short of being exactly 500, so very middle of the pack. You're a player in the Fuel right now, and you're up against a team like the Fusion that just doesn't seem to lose. What's going through your head?
I think what should be going through their head is, basically none of that. Like, don't worry about the Philadelphia Fusion being a strong team. Don't psych yourself out. For the Fuel, they need to focus on their own game, play to their own strengths, and just take it one fight at a time, right? They do have the fundamental strength as players. I think this is time for Guangzhou and Note to really step up. I think they've been a mid-table tank duo this season, had some good moments. Note, though, in particular, I think he's really improved on the Sigma from the start of the season. That's been a noticeable change for the team. So if they can rally around a really strong tank gameplay here, I think they can make this work. Crimzo's had a breakout season, and Paintbrush as well, and the break has looked really consistent. So I think this is definitely anybody's game, but Philly Fusion, very interesting right now. I wonder if they're going to commit to this. They might actually play a lack of double shield here. This would be pretty surprising, and honestly, I think this sets up Fuel really well if Philly actually roll out with this.
Yeah, this is something where, in theory, they could make it work, but it's difficult. We know that most teams are still favoring double shield right now. Certainly the Fuel are, but you take a look at the Fusion, they're out on the gates, and it is going to be the Winston Zarya, so this is interesting for the Fusion.
The mid-fight here is actually incredibly critical right now. You can't say enough about it. The mid-fight has to go the way of the Philly Fusion. If Dallas get control of mid, the Philly Fusion, they're going to be in a really rough time retaking. But if they can win mid, I think it's a very different story.
The Fuel, they're just going to be looking to set up and make the Fusion head to them. The power of double shield is that you get to hold your position. The Fusion, it's going to be up to them to make a move. An Alarm picked off. Note was able to find him. And the Fuel now up 6-5 here, and this is the perfect situation for double shield. They don't have to do anything crazy in the Fusion. They don't have the power to push in anymore.
Yeah, it's a nice, very fast rotation by the Fuel. They took the fight to the dive team, did not give them any moments to set up the dive, find the perfect initiation. They just hunt down Alarm, and, with no Lucio, that Orisa halt, eventually it's going to be coming for you. You can't out-rotate this team forever. You're just going to get halted time and time again. So now that the Fuel have control of mid, I'm a bit worried for the Philadelphia Fusion. One bright spot is that Fury got somehow a ton of ultimate charge that fight. It's really impressive by Fury on the Zarya. But I think retaking, look at Guangzhou's position. He's so annoying to evict from this spot.
Ivy having real trouble pressuring early on, and the Fusion seem to be poking in from different ends, but the neutral game for the Fuel so far, very strong. Able to fight poke for poke, but Doha in a bit of danger. Extended a bit to build up Blade, now has it. Sato just getting pummeled. This is the pain of playing Winston versus double shield. Doha coming onto the Blade, notes down. It's time to equalize. Doha on the way in, takes out Alarm, needs way more than that. The Fusion just won the front line before the Blade came out.
Yeah, the Nano Boost just did a little bit too much there, and Fury, man, he's just out of control on this Zarya. And, you know, what looked like a great opening to the fight there for the Dallas Fuel, it all really falls apart off the back of beautiful aggression on Fury. I think that's, what, 4 or 5 kills this fight? I mean, the power of the Zarya is pretty impressive. If, you know, she can go unchecked, if she can really pop off, then she can be that deadly force. And with Graviton Surge now on the table, this is going to be tough. I think the rally might be enough to help you survive, but when Ivy is going to be cleaving with the Blade, it just won't last that long for the Dallas Fuel.
There's just a crazy economy advantage right now for the Fusion, where say what you will about double shield versus this sort of setup. The Fuel are basically going to have to lose at least one fight, if not 2, to equalize, and that's bad given they only got 44%. Fusion waiting to go in. They set this one up with the EMP, strikes 4, and the cleanup is easy. I don't even know if they need the Blade, but man, does it make it clean.
Yeah, pretty impressive by the Philly Fusion, playing this aggressive, non-traditional style, I would say. I honestly want Fuel to get off this Ashe, though. I kind of feel like that's a big thorn in their side right now. I don't agree with Oniga's decision to keep the hero because, you know, yes, he has Bob now, but you're playing against not only Ana, a traditional counter to Bob, but also you've got Sombra. So you've got 2 ways to just completely nullify the ultimate. I don't like Oniga's decision to stay on a hero that is, frankly, incredibly vulnerable to being dove on.
Yeah, and I mean, for the Fusion, they're only about a fight, the 2 fights away, depending on how quick Fuel wants to play it. Fuel, they're going to be playing it pretty quick. They're going after Fury with a vengeance. Fury under all sorts of pressure right now. Able to shake it to a degree, still has Graviton in reserve. And the Fuel looking for a way in as the Fusion just bent back a bit here, Jake.
Yeah, I like the discipline from Fury, you know, holding on to this grab, but at this point it might be a reset. He is going to commit the grab now, but Immortality Field keeping everybody up. No one even really dropping low on the side of the Fuel, and the composition has really hit its stride. That beautiful opening hack by Doha onto Fury. Like, yes, the Nano did keep Fury alive, but he just wasn't able to play the aggressive style he wanted to play, just always on the back foot there. So Dallas did a nice job with that hack, getting a foothold on the map, and now it's just cleanup for them. Although some late picks here, especially onto Guangzhou, he's going to be very late to the next fight. You know, a player like Sato back with the Primal, he's going to be much quicker. So Doha with his EMP, Note with the Gravitic Flux, they should, I think, try to be aggressive on the side of the Fuel, because if they don't, then I think Guangzhou just won't be in this fight.
Well, the other thing, too, I don't even know if they realize there's an EMP here. Doha built this EMP up incredibly quickly, so Fusion might go in going, surely he doesn't have EMP, and then be surprised. This is the Doha special. He's done it on Sombra for years now. And let's see what he does this time. Doha waiting for the EMP opportunity. Crimso's already down, so this is already a difficult fight, but you gotta drop the EMP. 3 down already, and the Fuel just wait too long to initiate there, Jake, and it just bites him.
Yeah, and Ivy just going massive here with the Dragon Blade. The dive comp has completely worked out here for the Philadelphia Fusion. A very non-traditional style, but through great execution. And I want to highlight Fury for sure. Just absolutely going off on that Zarya. You know, even in that fight that felt so awkward, he had the patience, I think, to wait a very long time with the grab, which, even though it doesn't win them the fight, it did delay Fuel capping. So Philly was in that 99% scenario. All they had to do was retake. And then from there, you know, yes, Doha had an EMP, but it wasn't very high impact. Fusion did a great job initiating with Winston in a way that Doha doesn't just want to solo EMP a Winston, but at the same time, he waits so long to get the EMP off that, you know, by that time, Sato was already going crazy with the Primal on the back line. And, you know, that was a great way to sort of sneak a win out, I would say, on Well, a map where, you know, I think there's more potential for dive on that map. Lots of, you know, unconventional angles to approach from. But here, it's back to the double shield.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that, too, had to do with the fact that the Fuel were probably screaming against double shield all week long, right? And I just wonder if they didn't expect the swiftness of initiation coming in from the Fusion, even though it wasn't a double shield comp in turn.
Yeah, and now I think Fuel are over-preparing here. They're going for a full response, like an anti-dive variant here, the Orisa comp, but I think they're going to be heavily punished because this McCree is just not really going to do much to suppress Hisu. However, I like Fuel getting aggressive with this comp. They need to be aggressive. They won't outlast in the damage trade against Sigma, but maybe they can get aggressive, find some opening picks.
Well, the other reason to get aggressive, don't give Widow time. The problem is Onigod bites it early on, was going around the side. Ivy caught him. And now the Fusion up 6 on 5, and the Fuel, they just, with the Sombra as the only remaining DPS, they don't really have the power to fight back against this. They're just going to get mowed down one after another, and the Fusion are looking incredibly strong as they head over to the point.
Yeah, the Fuel do get the cap, and they're going to try and build up some point time here. Ivy just trying to escape with his life, but overall, this 15% that the Fuel are going to have, it's not really that significant. So for Philly to have mid control, I think they're very happy with this. And now you're in this awkward spot where Crimson almost has nano boost, but it's really not a great ultimate in this situation. Very easy to get peeled away. You know, heroes like Brig and Sigma can just sort of keep whatever hero gets nanoed off them. Onigod switching over the Widow, but this feels like too little too late here. Hisu almost has an Infrasight. Onigod has about one chance, I think, to get an opening pick, and then the walls is going to come down. And just like a ton of bricks, how do you push into this ultimate?
I think you answered it yourself a little bit earlier there. You need Onigod to find an early pickoff. The Fuel just need an injection of life here. The problem is, Hisu opening up with the Infrasight, it's going to delay just how aggressive Onigod can be. And the Fusion can slow play in the back, force Dallas to make the first move, and Onigod gets picked up by Hisu. Two already down before the blade comes out. This is just gratuitous by Ivy at the very end, and things are not looking good for the Fuel right now.
Yeah, I think Fuel kind of beat themselves on this map, frankly, ZP. I mean, it's not over yet, but they're in such a dire position. Just because Philly won that first map off this wacky dive style, Fuel thought that, oh, this alternate roster is just going to stick to that style. But of course they don't. They just switch over to the double shield. They can play the basic meta too. And Fuel, yes, they're on the right comp now, but they're so far behind in the ultimate tempo game. You know, Note's not even close to a Gravitic Flux. So Doha might have Blade, but Fury could just counter that with a well-placed Gravitic Flux.
Again, I think if you're the Fuel, you look to Onigod and you just hope, you pray that they get an early pickoff. Anything to start things off, but Fury opens up with the Flux. Doha's Blade still moves forward, picks off Alarm. Doha ends up with two somehow. The question is if that's going to be enough. It was great play by Doha to break that much open, but the Fusion are still not removed from the point.
Yeah, and Hisu striking back. So does Ivy. Oh no, this looks like it might be all over for the Fuel. They need to clutch it out somehow. Supercharger from Guangzhou. They're all in on this fight. It's the right decision. But Alarm, he's almost back on the healer, and Funny Astro is being kept alive. Hisu with another, and I mean, this is just Philadelphia Fusion taking map 1 here.
Yeah, the Fusion coming well prepared, psyching out the Fuel to a degree on map 2 based on their map or round 1 strategy, and this was dominance from the Fusion, and it almost felt like they won a game of chess at the end there, Jake.
Yeah, this is definitely a strategic outplay here. I like the idea from the Fuel because that comp that they're playing, you know, with the D.Va, McCree, Sombra, Ana, that's exactly the comp I would want to see them play like the last round, facing off against the Dive. I think that's a very great comp. However, when Philly just rolled out on the standard, like the expected comp, that is, you know, the trick, I guess, because with Hisu uncontested on Widow, on Ruins, I mean, that's one of those... Ruins is just one of those maps where you just cannot deal with a Widow. It's not possible. You need to duel her. Unless you're going to go in for like 6 hero all-in dive strat. An uncontested Widow just goes crazy. And I want to praise Philadelphia Fusion for understanding that matchup so quickly. Like, as soon as they see something like a D.Va, a McCree, they know that Fuel is forced to be aggressive. So Philly, they didn't even go to the point at the start of mid, and that's incredibly valuable for them. It lets a hero like Sigma have a long fight. So Fuel tried to make that rush work, but you know, Philly were just positioned too well around that. So overall, great play from the Fusion.
And to add a little bit of illumination to that too, where some people might look at that round and go, wait, Jake, what are you talking about? Hisu, I didn't see him get tons and tons of pickoffs there. What do you mean it was hard to counter? You see it all in the positioning of the Fuel, right? Where the Fuel, just by virtue of being up against a Widow, they were constrained in how they could move. They were constrained in how they had to engage. So even when a Widow isn't having the flashiest moments in the kill feed, it's still enough to control the game and really limit the options of the other team.
Yeah, I mean, Hisu just did his job, right? He charged up that Infrasight, and then, you know, the first fight, I loved how long he waited with the Infrasight. That's textbook great Widow play. I see some Widows popping that ult very, very early, but the ideal moment is actually not while the enemy's setting up, but rather as late as possible before they push, because once they're almost in that state of being committed, they're you know, going to fight, they're close enough to you that they sort of have to. That's when the Infrasight comes in, and it gives you this huge advantage during the fight itself. He's able to pick off Onigod, and you know, he doesn't need to get a ton of picks, right? Shutting down the enemy Widow, she's not charging up her ultimate anymore, and as you said, then as the Fuel, you're just forced into this headlong aggression, and the rest of your team understands that. You know, they know, okay, there's no pressure on us anymore. We can back up as far as we need to back up. Fury played that really well, in particular on his Sigma position.
So we're moving on to Watch Point Gibraltar for our second map. And we have Ivy still in the lineup from looks of it. I haven't heard anything about substitution, so I think Ivy is still in. Now, Ivy, of course, you think back to the beginning of the season, it was a lot of May. Ivy now in the lineup for the first time in a while. And what do you think about Ivy's gameplay there?
Did a great job in the Genji. I mean, I didn't expect him to play too much Mei right now just because the hero is a little bit out of the meta. Genji is a stronger pick, but the fact that he made Genji work so well on the dive strategy, you know, on the Orisa strategy, he had the versatility there. not only the big blades, but also those early fight pickoffs. Think about the mid-fight where he was the one to open things up onto Onigod's McCree. And, that's so important from a Genji, having that sneakiness to assassinate an enemy McCree. A hero where that matchup can go either way, right? You can land a flashbang and it's an easy kill on Genji. However, a Genji with a great approach like that of Ivy, he was able to just cut down Onigod before he was able to really generate any value. So overall, really consistent plays from Ivy. Did his job there. Focused on, using his tank line enabling such as the Orisa Hall and the Sigma Flux to get great blades. And, that was pretty impressive from him. And, even Doha had a nice blade, but honestly, I think that was Alarm actually being a little too greedy with that Immortality Field. He actually dropped it as he died. So the Immortality Field didn't quite deploy to save Alarm himself. Which gave, Doha a dash reset. So even that one good moment for the Fuel that, almost got them a fight win, it still just wasn't enough. And it still was honestly more of like a mistake on the Fusion side than really the Fuel being in control there.
Now, I know there's people at home looking at all this going, why is Decay not playing? I didn't see Onigod do a whole lot in that last series. Where's Decay? And I think this is something where it's really important to note that based on the compositional matchups that we saw in Map 1, I don't necessarily think that Onigod was put into a great position to succeed there. I just think that the Fusion kind of out-game plan things from the very beginning. But now that we head into Watch Point Gibraltar, I think it's a lot more likely that it ends up being more of a mirror. I mean, we'll see if that ends up being the case, but assuming it is, would you expect Onigod to bounce back a bit here?
Definitely. I think he did just get strategically outclassed there. It wasn't really like an actual duel going on there. By the time Onigod was actually, first he's playing Ashe into a full dive comp, which is a pretty rough spot to be. I would have rather seen him on McCree earlier that round. So he didn't really get any value. But honestly, though, part of that is the strategy, but part of that is on Onigod. He needs to recognize that he shouldn't be playing Ashe in that scenario. He needs to play a hero like McCree against, heroes like Sombra, right? You need to punish them with stuns. But now it's going to be a little bit more of a mirror match, but Onigod's got his work cut out for him. Sombra Genji dive is certainly going to be hunting for this Widow. Ooh. And, well, that's work right there from Onigod. Lighting it up, starting things off with a bang. That's how you need to play on Widow, though. Finding those early picks on DPS gives you the space to work with.
Well, and not only space, but also the ability to stay here in the frontal spot a little bit longer, where normally you're going to see the defense bend back a little bit as the offense moves forward, but you get the early pickoff, it's a 6-on-5, you can stay here for just a little bit longer. But now, I would expect the Fuel to start backing out a bit, Jake, as the Fusion bring this underneath the car wash.
Yeah, the really interesting hero in the Philadelphia Fusion's lineup, I think, is this Zarya. It could be hard to get value on Zarya in a dive mirror where, it's not so easy to get guaranteed value off bubbles. It's a lot easier for the enemy dive team to just not give you energy. So Sato gets bubbled, but did Fury really get much off of that? I don't think so. And, Onigod's still poking away from this backline. They need to get on the Widow. Eventually, he's going to produce kills.
Yeah, Onigod right now doing a great job of just continually repositioning. Oh, nice shot! Finds Hisu directly to the face. Guangzhou, though, out of the fight, 5-on-5. So the Fuel not out of the fire here just yet.
Yeah, and this is where the Zarya can be really effective in this small room. Fury, that's his second kill. Both supports bio-naded by Crimzo, though. What a beautiful nade. That's almost certainly going to lock up this team fight. Unless Fury has something to say about it, he's still cooking him in here. And that's both supports falling now on the side of the Fuel. So Fury's dropping low, though. He shouldn't be able to live here. Note going to allow himself to fall. Not committing self-destruct.
I think Fury
but
did
it's
enough.
An all-in. Wow, they're committing.
That was Fury's dramatic sacrifice. Went in, just continued burning and burning to the very end, even getting the D-Mech right before falling. Fury has been playing out of his mind, and even if the Fuel come out here to stall, guess what? Fury's coming out of spawn. Graviton is ready, so you're going to start seeing the Fuel come in, try and bring this back. Doha has the blade, going to the back. Still a bit of danger here, thrown back. Doha's down, Fury's back to the fight, and the Graviton, it's ready to go, but if you're the Fusion, you don't even want to use it here. You're just going to drop the EMP and try and finish it out without.
Yeah, and I don't think Fury needs it. It's a beautiful cleanup. The blade just got shut down from Doha, and that's where the Zarya actually does get a ton of value. I think in the neutral trade it can be a struggle, although it was a nice work by Philly to get in that small room where Fury's more enabled. But then Doha, that's a classic feels bad man on Genji where you're going for the blade on the supports, they're getting armor packed, you're getting booped, and then the guy you actually commit on the Ana just gets bubbled by Zarya. There's just no way to get a kill with that blade, especially since Crimzo didn't have the nano ready.
So the Fusion continue their relentless assault. Fury on the top right now, hang on to the ground. Astra and Alarm, though, again hit by the Bionade, both getting low, just barely able to survive. But while they're worrying about themselves, it gives the opportunity for Fury to get picked off. So the Fuel taking advantage of the support pressure as Doha gets to the back line. Has to be careful though. At 38 HP, doesn't want to get picked off.
Yeah, Funny Astro brawling to stay alive here. He is going to get cut down by Doha. These late picks, though, could be really valuable. I actually like that Ivy's committing like this, trying to trade some kills out as well with Sato. Sato's going to commit here. That's one kill. That's enough to go for, especially if he can find another Primal pin, and he does. And this is Sato's second Primal of the game. He's charging them a lot faster than his counterpart. He's just going to settle for top ship control now, but you know, this keeps the card moving. That was a hotly contested fight, and you've got another Nano Blade coming up, and no obvious counters for the sides of the Fuel.
This is going to be really tough for the Fuel as the Fusion just keep up with the style of relentless pressure. Even if they're down 2 players, they still continue to fight as if it's winnable. The Nano Blade's out. Here comes Ivy. Stunned, slept, thrown back. Ivy still somehow gets Doha, but a lot of that was mitigated. The Fuel, though, they've lost 2, and it still did enough, Jake.
That was the Blade shutdown as well. Doha tried to pull out the Blade right as that last slash came out from Ivy. Oh, that is so painful. I think they wanted to get a Nano Blade there for the Fuel, but Crimzo, once his Genji fell, he had no choice but to give the Nano to Guangzhou. Just, you know, you actually want to commit the ult, try and stay on the same tempo. I like that Onigod got off the Widow, though. I mean, he had some good opening picks, but you have to remember that if Widow doesn't get those opening picks, she basically offers nothing. So the Sombra, although it's not as flashy, it's not getting those instant kills, it is setting up a lot, and oh, this could be another brutal one. An EMP on the high ground could catch both tanks. Looks like it's going to.
For it. EMP hits 3, and Guangzhou nowhere to go. Can't even get angry after that. Now Sato falls in the other end, so it's still 5-on-5. Still something for the Fuel to deal with here. Note, very close to self-destruct, and really the trade just means the Fusion get a little bit more progress here, Jake.
Yeah, and a much later rally from Funny Astro means that his whole team is armored up. They have position here. Nano Blade is almost ready. However, he's going up against a Primal as well as a self-destruct. So there's a lot of potential to actually zone out this Blade. He is going to go for it, and this is great position.
Already takes down Crimzo. The self-destruct from Note is out, but Ivy able to just take cover on the other side of the box. That's going to be just one elimination, but it puts the Fusion in a great spot. Now Sato, his turn to move in, uses the Primal Rage. Heavy disruption onto the Fuel. Guangzhou's trying to do the same, but just gets focused down in the back. The Fusion, completely dominant. Doha, Nano Blade, anything to try and push us back, but he's just getting dominated, Jake. Couldn't get anything done.
The positional game is absolutely beautiful right now from the Philly Fusion. They're keeping Fury alive. He's constantly pumping out damage, and you've got an EMP grab ready to close this out. Fury's just trying to finish up that ultimate, but this is all over for the Dallas Fuel. Defense, no way to get back to the cart, and Philly Cap with 2:20 remaining. That is a really blistering pace on Gibraltar, and you know, once again, I have to give this to Fury. I feel like he's the difference maker right now. I questioned the Zarya starting out. I wasn't sure. Is he going to be able to get energy? Is he going to be able to have impact? It's a dive mirror. You know, the Diva so mobile, she can do a lot in that situation. Fury absolutely justified his existence here, and he is that final threat that, you know, despite running a Sombra, who is a hero that offers less damage, that I think has really enabled Fury to succeed. You know, hacks on tanks, and you've got Zarya there to finish them off. So the lineup from the Philly Fusion just seems better practiced, and they're just playing better. Onigod's Widow got picks. It just didn't matter.
And I think this is where you have to question, is this the power of hero pools, even in a week where the hero pool is out of it, where the 2 weeks of play prior to this, teams were playing a lot of Zarya. You couldn't run double shield because Orisa was gone, so we saw Zarya in play a lot more often. But now we've opened everything back up, and we're still in the era of Zaryas that are just completely bloodlusted. You know, Hanbin was one of the best examples where Hanbin was just looking insane, but now you have Fury in here on the Zarya continuing to put in immense amounts of work, even when you have a double shield option available. And I just wonder at some point here if teams like the Fusion looked at the situation and went, wait, yeah, we could still run double shield, but man, Fury's pretty good in Zarya. Let's just roll with this.
I think this is also, you know, pretty heavily on the map. Gibraltar is one of the only maps in the pool where I think this comp is actually, like, the dive comps in general are dominant. I think it is an interesting choice to bring Zarya out here, but I think part of that is just the strategy of the Genji and the Sombra. You know, a Graviton Surge fits in perfectly with either of those DPS ults, and overall, I think it makes your backline a lot scarier. It gives more protection potential against something like a Nano Blade, where D.Va has the bomb, yes, but without ultimate, what does D.Va really do against that ultimate? So, the fact that Fury's able to bubble up Alarm or Funny Astro when the Blade comes in, it really makes Doha's life hard, and he just hasn't gotten one good Blade yet this map.
It's been tough for Doha, and as you mentioned, it's all the factors working against them. Onigod, though, finds Ivy again early on. Doesn't matter if it's attack or defense. Somehow has Genji's number on the Widow. But that's going to give Fuel a lot more space as they set up for this all-important first attack here through the car wash.
Yeah, and already they've got something to work with now with that opening pick. Only got pushing card as well. But so far, the positional game being played well by the Fuel. They're staying alive in the server rune, keeping positional control, although Fury wants to challenge for it now.
The Fuel looking for the finish. They take down Hisu off the sleep. And now, 6-on-5 for the Fuel. Everyone's looking pretty healthy. The Fusion in a real dangerous spot. And now you look to Fury, who, I mean, has been charged up, but with half your team down around you, I don't know if Fury can be the hero again here.
Yeah, Doha heard me, and he's pretty pissed off about that. It looks like he's about dominating the whole team now. Fury is going to die very late, so this looks like it's going to be a first cap for the Dallas Fuel. They've got Nanoblade to secure it, and Infrasight is, you know, what better setup could you ask for in terms of setting up for the retake? Oni got in perfect position. It's going to be very hard to suppress this Widow.
Well, they use the rally, and the Graviton's going to be ready, but before the Grav's ready, Doha cuts down 2. So Fury's just going to have to hold on to it there. But, you know, the interesting thing, I don't think they're going to win that in any case, but if Fury had the Grav a little bit earlier, it might have made the Fuel, you know, take much longer to grab that. So the timing, very fortunate.
Yeah, definitely. Although I agree, though, with your earlier analysis that there's no way Philly win that. It's better to just save ults, get a good reset going. It is awkward because they did commit support ults trying to hold first. So Ivy has a Blade to combo the grab, but he won't have a nano boost or a rally. So survival is not guaranteed for this Genji. Ivy's going to have to play this well, but what a beautiful opening pick by Hisu. And that really takes the wind out of the sails for the Dallas Fuel.
Well, also the Fuel, I mean, their healing just goes into the dumpster. You're down the Ana early. Fury drops the Graviton just to be sure, but the Fusion looking very good here, especially if Sato can just get out and get healed. You don't want to use Primal in a fight you've already essentially won, but okay. Ivy goes a little bit deep. Doha picks him off. That opens the door for the Fuel to get very aggressive here in just a moment.
Yeah, Fury offers a lot of stabilization potential here, but he's not able to really get aggressive, and Doha has a beautiful position from which to drop in. Fury, though, is going to be a tough fight for Genji. That deflect not working, and oh, there we go. What a beautiful counter dive EMP from Hisu.
Not just the EMP, but the Bionade on the Gamsu and the Focus Fire. Very good for the Fusion, but they're down Sato. Sato didn't get a chance to use Primal. Ivy very low on the brink. Only got able to finish him off. And the Fuel continuing to pressure in the same way that the Fusion did just a round ago. So the Fusion not quite out of the fire here just yet.
Yeah, the problem is Nanoblade is online here, so as long as Ivy and Alarm can, you know, sync up and get together and use these ultimates, it's going to be quite difficult for Fuel to survive, especially if Crimzo is the target of the Blade. Initial Nano, though, coming in first.
Nano out from Alarm, onto Ivy. One already sliced down. Ivy not yet sated, and with 2 out of the fight, the Fusion are in a very good spot. Sato, have you noticed that Sato's just been at like 20% HP forever? It's still living all the while.
Yeah, he does a great job making something out of nothing and just, you know, not consuming too many resources, and that is what enables Fury to be so successful.
Okay,
oh, I'm back. I resynced my feed and I'm back.
Of time left remaining, now down to 1:45, and they're gonna need every last bit of that bank just to drain the Fusion here that really have all they need for the next 2, if not 3 fights.
I love how patient Fury's being with this grab. He's just gonna try and grab Doha, would be my guess. EMP does come down onto Doha, so he's not able to dash and act again. This is so painful. The Nano keeps Doha alive, but he's not really a threat here. Oh,
no, meanwhile, Ivy slices down Doha at the end, but the bomb from Note evens it up. The Fuel still being scrappy, 5 still around, but this is where Sato uses the Primal he's been saving for a while. More disruption, they catch Crimzo in the chaos, and the Graviton from Fury adds more control. The Fusion continue to just hold the Fuel back, and now we're down to the final minute. It is absolutely the danger zone now for the Dallas Fuel.
I just love this dive style from Philly Fusion. They're really well practiced. They understand how to give ground, but hang on to those crucial skills, crucial ultimates that enable them to come back into the fights, enable them to clean up late. Like, for instance, that Nano Blade out of Ivy was a beautiful counter, especially when the EMP from Hisu shut down Doha. So now Fuel, they've got nothing except the Pulse Bomb, and you are playing against Fury on the Zarya, so it's really only likely you're going to get a kill if that Zarya bubble is down. And gosh, look at the pressure coming into Fuel. They just can't actually get full health. Philly are charging up ults very quickly.
Once again, they need Onigod to be the hero. Has Pulse Bomb. Oh, gets hacked! Onigod falls! No crazy heroic Pulse Bomb this time. And heading into a 5-on-6 is the Dallas Fuel. This is so tough. Crimzo's hanging on to the Nano. I mean, maybe you throw in the Doha, hope he builds up a blade, but this is so tough. Final 10 seconds left remaining. Nano goes in onto Doha, who's in the back line.
Oh, no, they woke him up.
Ooh, Ivy and Sato over to the back. Here comes the blade. This is going to be the dagger to the heart. Not even really needed. The Fusion up 2-0.
Philly, just the ultimate economy was textbook there. I feel that the Zarya, while I don't think it's like the traditional pick on a map like Gibraltar, so much verticality that you would normally be relying on, you know, want a hero like D.Va, Philly absolutely made it work. The way they played around Fury and were able to give up ground, but keep those crucial positions, you know, Alarm staying on the high ground, Funny Astro holding cart when it needs to happen, and Fury able to sort of rotate as he wishes. They did a beautiful job playing around Zarya. Hisu on the Sombra, just great EMPs, saving them to counter the dives from Fuel, so Fuel is always overcommitted when they do get EMP'd. Just overall outplays right now coming on from the Philly Fusion.
Yeah, I mean, I'd point to the neutral game here where it doesn't really matter. The Fusion just winning most of these fights before they even begin. But you know what? We want to break it down just a little bit more. Watch Point is starting right now.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our game break presented by Pringles. Wavy, Zoe here, joined by Costa and Reinforce. And currently, the Philadelphia Fusion are up 2-0 against the Dallas Fuel. So let's talk about the matches at hand. Looking at map 1, Ilios. It was all Philly, although we saw a few moments from the Dallas Fuel there. I want to talk about the lineup here, Reinforce. We did see Hisu in on that Sombra. Ivy was playing the Genji for Philadelphia Fusion. What are your thoughts about the look they've shown us today?
Yeah, well, the lineup is a big talking point, of course, and Hisu playing the Sombra makes a lot of sense because there is a hero that Carpe isn't necessarily known for. We know that he has great hit scan, like Widowmaker, McCree, Tracer, whatever. But Hisu has a great Sombra, and he's showed that today in this composition. Ivy playing the Genji, we have some question marks about because EQO has been playing most of the Genji as of recent, but maybe it's a bit of a stylistic difference. We saw that Ivy had some decent blades, and he likes to play a bit more aggressive, whereas EQO perhaps plays a bit more passively or reluctant, so to speak. So maybe it's a bit of a stylistic matchup, but we saw them come out primarily on the Sombra and the Genji, and that's what they play on Gibraltar as well. So interesting style from Philly. Very happy to see this, but then of course they could play the double shield as well on Ilios to close things out. So very dominant and impressive performance so far by the Philadelphia Fusion.
I'm really curious to know if the reason they're running this lineup and this style of gameplay like we saw on map 2 is because of the maps that we're seeing. Ilios is a very hard map to play double shields because there's a lot of distance to cover, and then the same thing on Gibraltar, we see so much dive, and that's what we saw from the Philadelphia Fusion in that, and they just look so good on it. They keep playing the meta that we saw from last week with Fury on the Zarya, and it seems to be working really well, and they're forcing Dallas to play their game, which is what Philly is so good at. Dallas just don't really know how to get anything done. Onigod is having moments of, moments of glory with his headshots, and he is getting a lot of good kills, but outside of that, it's really hard. I think they're really struggling to enable Doha to get the value that Ivy is getting. Doha is getting, forward, but he seems to always die with every single blade that he's doing, and the Philadelphia Fusion are just so oppressive with their aggression and their teamwork that Dallas just look lost.
Right, and I think we have an example of just kind of the breakdown in execution for the Dallas Fuel in our crunch time presented by Pringles. Wavy, Reinforce, why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, so we got an ending clip here for a round from Ilios, and it is going to be the Dallas Fuel hesitating a little bit, playing a bit cautiously, and that is going to mean that the Philadelphia Fusion can engage with their dive composition. So as we take a look at this clip, it is going to be Doha with this EMP that they really needs to get it going as soon as possible and find a way for Dallas Fuel to engage. But they don't, and instead the Fusion take it into their own hands, they put off the Primal Rage, and then we see that Hisu comes out with the EMPs and his nice dive follow-up from the Fusion. So I like the aggression coming out from the Fusion, playing this composition, obviously very comfortable with it. And the Dallas Fuel, they're finding it difficult to really hold their ground against this team. I think that the Dallas Fuel are playing a pretty good game, but the Fusion here, they're really playing a top-tier Overwatch, and this is why they are a top team in the league.
So, Costa, would you agree this is just a outmatched kind of scenario?
Yeah, I just don't think Dallas was ready for this level of aggression. Like, that fight, Dallas had an obvious plan. They wanted to sit in this high ground, make the Philadelphia Fusion walk into them, and then EMP, right? That's simple. But Sato gets so much value from diving deep into the backline that they don't want to solo EMP Sato, and then they get a little lost. They have a Gravitic Flux and a Rally, and they just can't get them off. They need to be more aggressive with their ultimates. Otherwise, Philly's just going to take the control into their hands, and Dallas is going to lose fights they really shouldn't lose.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if they can bring it back in the second half. We have an exciting kind of announcement, though. We do see some subs coming out for the Philadelphia Fusion. Hisu is out, Carpe in, Fury out, Poco is subbing in, and Funny Astra is out, and Boombox will fill his shoes. On the Fuel side of things, we see no changes, so let's see what an impact those subs will have on that second half. And for all the action, we once more headed over back to Zippy and Jake.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
That'll be the coalescence to kick it off from Alarm. There it is, Doha EMP. This one, very good. It doesn't interrupt Alarm's coalescence here. 이러면 EMP 그대로죠. caught out. You can't wait to count for the burst damage of a pulse bomb. Sound barrier even being committed for the Dallas here. So Philly probably just take an L here.
It's been quick breaks so far today, but also a very quick series. The Fusion looking surgical against the Fuel. And the Fuel, right now, Jake, they have one path in front of them. Reverse sweep or loss, and doesn't seem to be a great start.
Yeah, certainly not. After, that map 1 was really like just a strategic outplay, playing this unconventional dive comp first. Then you go into the second round, Fuel try to counter that comp, but it doesn't even come out. And the Fusion surprised them with the standard strategy, right? So I think the Fuel were really tripping over themselves at that point. You go into map 2, so quick, and now the Zarya from Fury is just taking over, despite Gibraltar being, you would think one of the worst Zarya maps, right? It struggles to take high ground. It's just not the most effective hero in those situations. However, Fury made it work, and overall, I think the team playing that Sombra Genji style did a great job playing around him. We talked about Onigod in the pregame as well. Had a really great performance on Widow, a ton of really impressive picks. It just didn't seem to count for anything. The Fusion, I think, did an absolutely beautiful job of working around being down a player, still maintaining Fury as like the centerpiece from their defense. And on the defensive round in particular, that was really impressive.
Now, the one thing that's worth noting is we do have not 1, not 2, but 3 substitutions coming in for the Fusion. We got Carpe finally back in, we got Poco, and we got Boombox. So 3 big swaps. That also means that Fury is out of the lineup, despite having an insane performance in the first 2 maps. And to the sub note, a fun little factoid is that you have to go back to week 16 to find the last time that Carpe did not start in a Fusion game. So the Fusion sort of playing with some things today.
I think they are, and honestly, there's no reason not to, right? Like, they should have so much confidence going into these matches, and, just sharpening up all the tools in the toolbox is a great look going into the Countdown Cup, going into playoffs, showing other teams that you have this vast arsenal, that you're unpredictable, and that's what I would call really the meat of this match today, is just being unpredictable. Fusion running a comp that I didn't expect to see at all on Ilios, and then, coming back to the standard in a surprising way. So just, I love the strategy from the Philadelphia Fusion. Coaching staff on point right now. And now that you're bringing in Carpe, you're bringing in Poco and Boombox. So now you have more options as we go into King's Row, like especially with Boombox Alarm. They could go back to the Break Bap style and just switch roles here. Or we could see potentially a Bap Zen style come out. So, you know, if you're the Fuel now, you're still guessing, still trying to think, okay, what are they going to play? But I think it's far from settled yet. And going into King's Row, I think the Fuel, it needs to be beyond pulling out individual outplays. This needs to be an overall team that is just better at adapting. And Philly so far have punished a lot of weaker teams that just haven't been able to adapt quickly enough.
Now, some people might be watching going, oh, Philly has just swapped up 3 players. They're going to a new map. Is this because we're heading to King's Row? Or do you think in this instance just Fusion doing essentially whatever they want? Because I look at this Fusion lineup, and I understand they have a good coaching staff. They have a lot of depth. I don't think they need to swap out 3 players necessarily for King's Row. I just think they're doing it almost that way just because.
Yeah, I think, well, there's a good reason, right? And it's that you have all these incredibly talented players. Why not give them stage time? You know, they are actually capable of performing at the highest level. These aren't players who are really a step back, that your team's going to be a lot weaker. That's just not the case because of the roster that the Philly Fusion has. And that's what all the top teams are looking like these days. They've got deep rosters where you can go beyond that initial starting 6 and still have a top Overwatch League caliber roster. That's what's making them the very best teams in the world right now. So I think probably a lot of other teams right now waiting in the wings, you know, having a bit of a struggle season, might look to this and gain some insight, because going into next season, I think this might be more of the meta to have a bigger roster of strong players. Don't expect some superstar starting 6 to just carry you forever. That's not. It's kind of an outdated strategy at this point. The top teams have all surpassed that.
Now, you think back to your time as a pro player, and you see how Fusion swaps things up as much as they do. You know, as a pro player, is that something good that just allows you to specialize a little bit more, or something you would look forward to that sort of have that depth to be able to swap back and forth so freely?
Well, I think it's a good thing, but it's also something that you can't necessarily do if you're really struggling. Like, I think if you're struggling, it can make more sense to just stick with a consistent 6, try to build on that and improve and just get your executions down. But for a team like the Fusion that's just dominating, that's having an amazing season, it's like the way to go even further beyond. Because if you just keep playing 6 players, you know, during that whole season, and they have a great season, but then playoffs comes along and you've got to adapt the meta, you've got to play new heroes, and players who haven't started all season need to play, you might be in some hot water there. So the fact that you're just, at this point, like, the record doesn't even matter so much for the Fusion. They're going to be one of the higher seeds. So just prep yourself for playoffs, give yourself that versatility. And it's going to be relatively standard comps for both teams. Big difference here is Carpe on Widow versus Onigod on the Ashe.
All right, so the Fuel, last opportunity to turn things around here in the series. On the attack here in King's Row. Halt Rock already heading directly at him, and the Fuel could be taking this a little bit slower as, oh, Carpe finds Onigod to kick things off. And already the Fuel in a tougher spot.
Yeah, great work from Carpe, and that pickoff's probably going to lead to a snowball fight. Doha's fighting back as best as he can, charging a ton of ultimate, but now Carpe's just uncontested, and he finds more headshots. Oh, he even wants to duel with Onigod.
And the Fusion, I mean, this is all cleanup right now, Jake, where they get the early pickoffs courtesy of Carpe, and then they just roll into the Fuel. Now, they do lose Ivy towards the end. They'll make the Fusion perhaps a little bit less aggressive, but already they've burned about a minute off the clock.
Yeah, and Onigod switched to Widow. Now he's back to the Ashe, resets his ultimate. Bright spot for the Fuel is that Doha did a beautiful job charging up that blade incredibly quickly. So it's possible that Philly Fusion won't be entirely ready for this. But look at Poco, man. He almost has a flux after one fight. That's pretty disgusting as well.
He's got it now. The Amp Matrix for the Fusion early. Going to be forcing the Fuel back. So it's Amp Matrix v Amp Matrix, but neither side really wants to poke through the window. But as you say, the Flux advantage here is so sublime for the Fusion because Poco gets to use the Flux now, throws him into the air. I'll see if Carpe finds anything right after. Still, everyone alive for the Fuel, so the Fuel able to deal with it, in part due to the Immortality field. But now Ivy has the blade, takes down 2, over the top and done. The Fuel pushed back again.
Wow, beautiful blade out from Ivy there. Gets the early burn on Sato's halt. Synergy is perfect. And then he has the patience to just wait for that final second dash / combo to finish off Paintbrush. So, the reset is really painful for the Fuel. Not much to work with in terms of ultimates. And Philly did expend everything, but they do have Supercharger. And if you only had one ultimate, you would pick Supercharger every time. It sort of enables you to get all those other ultimates back. Gamsu a little bit behind on that due to losing those fights. So, quick Supercharger out from Sato. Fuel might be able to just kite this out, though, so potentially pretty low impact.
Gamsu's
but
in danger. Gamsu's down!
no.
Oh, he was so low and just got caught before he could fully break line of sight. And it's another delay for a team that can't really afford more, Jake. A minute 30 left in the series on the line.
Yeah, Doha sneaking around in the back line, forced to dash even deeper behind. This could offer some distraction on Carpe, but Carpe doesn't care. He's just going to push into the front line and get a kill. So now Doha's going to get in, but yeah, beautiful work by Alarm. He's just staying with his buddy Carpe, and Carpe's a Widow. I mean, my God, we knew this guy is good, but he's just putting on a show here, really dominating Onigod.
Fuel, they use their flux. They don't get much out of it. Just a little bit of positioning. Doha low down. Carpe finishes him off. Sato's out of the fight, so perhaps a brief moment, but Alarm was able to get around, find Paintbrush. The Fusion still up in numbers as the Fuel, they have to get on the point now. I mean, it's under a minute left. And Carpe's just doing whatever he wants. Finds Guangzhou to the side. It's nothing flashy, but it's so effective.
Yeah, and next fight, you're going to be pushing into an infra site. This is one of the better defensive setup ults in the game. Just gives your team all the info. Guangzhou's Supercharger is probably like the biggest win on the side of the Fuel, that they have that option available. But will Fuel even push into this? I think they might just need to wait it out, go for a single final fight. But, I mean, like, the setup is just very obvious here, right? It's very telegraphed because of the infra site. And, gosh, if Carpe finds this pick.
That'd be the end of it if he did, but there's the flux. Ivy on the fall through right after, takes down Onigod. And now the burst threat for the Fuel, it's gone again. And we're in their final 10 seconds, so the Fuel must commit. 5 on 6. Is anything gonna go the Fuel's way? Ivy with the blade, dashes on through, takes down another 2. Carpe, the cherry on top. And this is gonna be a first point hold with authority from the Fusion.
Yeah, this one might be over, ZP. This one...
You don't say!
This one might be... yeah, this is just a brutal domination here. What else can you say? Carpe coming in on the Widow, and he's just like, hey, I've been just playing Widow HSDM while we were playing those other matches. I'm feeling pretty warmed up. Just dominates the server. And, I mean, what can the Fuel do when Carpe has a performance like that and the rest of the Fusion is playing incredibly well? You know, Ivy's blades have been great, and I want to highlight Sato as a key enabling factor there. Every single time, Sato even puts his life on the line to get a great halt, because he knows that's what really matters to enable Ivy to get the big cleave with blade, so that, you know, even when the drone comes out, like, you're hitting 3 or 4 people with the blade. So, like, yes, you're alive for a second or two because of the drone, but you just chop the tank so low. Everyone from the Fusion gets aggressive. And honestly, I hope that they play double hit scan on attack here. I think that actually would be a great decision, because then the first fight is going to be so hard for the Dallas Fuel. You just have so much outgoing DPS pressure. You don't have that flanker to attack a backline, but, I mean, maybe you don't actually need it if you just break shield really quick and Carpe just finds opening kills.
I mean, it's going to be hard no matter what, where the Fuel are in that terrible Overwatch position, right? You have to hold for 4 minutes, and all you get in return is a draw. You don't even get a win. So it's incredibly difficult. It's so rare to see, you know, the idea of a double first point hold. I mean, it has happened, but it is incredibly rare in the entirety of Overwatch competition. But we'll see if the Fuel have what it takes to at least keep the series alive.
Yeah, it's going to be the standard Genji comp coming out for the Fusion. Carpe's Widow, though, man, it's just like if he just gets a kill, this defense is basically over. So the Fuel, they have to be so cautious here, and that's a really rough feeling. You can see they're holding much more passively than the Fusion did. And Fusion doing a great job in the poke war, but Onigod, he will have an edge in the shield trade. Now he crosses that sideline quickly to get aggressive, but the Dynamite misses, and beautiful halt, dash through. It's an explosive fight, though. This could go either way.
Carpe, though, has the line of sight right now, just looking for one magic pickoff. Has it if he can find it. Not quite yet. Meanwhile, Onigod takes down Alarm, and the Fuel holds strong. Onigod having the time of his life on the other side.
Yeah, that amplification matrix combined with the Dynamite just destroyed them. But, I mean, how close was that, right? If Carpe finds that first headshot, that's an uncharacteristic miss. And if Onigod hadn't been alive, he wouldn't have been able to dish out that damage. So this game is really on a knife's edge, right? One mistake and you lose King's Row.
So the Fuel, they survived the first fight, but they're going to need another 3 to 4 more in a row just to stay alive. Onigod in the back. The Bob charged up. Carpe in for sight out. The Fusion, they know exactly how to approach this. But now the Fuel, they use their flux. Onigod down in the back. Ivy was able to dash back with the blade. Sato at the finish. The Fusion, though, they lose 2 as they move back in. The Fuel still fairly healthy, pushing them back out of the point. The Fuel so far hanging on, Jake.
Yeah, I think losing Poco there was what really cost them, so a nice Flux by Note. But now it's Poco with a Flux advantage. Paintbrush has the rally. To be fair, there's a lot of ultimates on the side of the Fuel. They're doing a beautiful job here using the absolute minimum of ultimates, so Philly never get that overwhelming scenario. But now Carpe over to the Ashe, wants to offer more in the shield trade. He hasn't been able to find the picks. I actually like this call, and that's a big Flux, going to find everyone.
It's a nice Flux. Is the fall through going to be there, though? Maybe not. Paintbrush.
Oh,
Doha's taken down! Carpe deletes Doha immediately. And now the Fusion have the advantage they've been looking for. 6 on 5. It's up to Onigon to respond, to keep the Fuel in this. And they take down Ivy. They even it back up. There's still hope for the Fuel.
Yeah, Ant Matrix does come out, though, from Boombox. He's going to be putting out a lot of damage downrange here. We'll see if the Fuel can actually answer that. They're going to be hiding in the corner, but another Supercharger keeping the pressure on. Doha's Blade to answer.
The halt to set up. Doha with the Blade right to the back. Looking for a little bit more. Boombox out of the fight. Oh, Carpe with the shutdown again. And with 3 down for the Fuel, this could be all she wrote.
Yeah,
Ivy, dash, it's over. The Fusion sweep the Fuel in a very dominant fashion. And what more can you say? Excellence continues in Philadelphia.
Yeah, just incredible work by them. What a full hold. You know, you even bring in some players cold who haven't really warmed up in the series. What do? They just lay the smack down with a full hold on Kings Row. Offense was a little bit rocky, but just think back to that moment that Carpe had Onigot in his sights and, you know, missed when Onigot wasn't really watching that. And to be honest, that was like, you rarely see that from Carpe. That's a surprise when it happens. But if Carpe found that headshot, they might have even won that fight just because the Ashe wouldn't have been able to wipe them in that way. So just not too much going for the Fuel right now. A little bit of an outmatch on a lot of levels there. I want to highlight, you know, players like Fury, especially in those first 2 maps, having a ridiculous performance on the Zarya.
Yeah, I mean, we saw talent across the board for the Fusion here. And, I mean, I think the hardest part here for Dallas is that there were points in the series where they were clearly out-strategized and they had compositional losses. They had points where when it was more even on composition, they just lost in the neutral. They were not poking anywhere near as effectively. But, you know, that's the Fuel in a nutshell right now. But you look towards the Fusion, you got to celebrate the good. And our player of the match, presented by Xfinity, it's Fury. Fury looked insane the first 2 maps.
Yeah, I think about opening up with that map, you know, playing Winston Zarya, despite Double Shield being back in the pool. It's pretty fearless from the Philadelphia Fusion. They managed to make it work, even after mid-fight not going their way. So really impressive work by them. And mostly that was on the back of Fury, having great positioning, discipline on the bubbles, discipline on the grabs, knowing when to commit and when to play passive. And, you know, the commitments were pretty terrifying from him. Like, think about it, even on Gibraltar, those fights in the server room where Fury just gets 1, 2, 3, 4 kills. He's just staying alive forever, keeping that Brig and Ana alive as well. And with the perfectly timed bubbles on his Ana when the Blade comes in. So just really doing everything on Zarya, you know, being that incredible damage threat, putting himself in harm's way in cases for his team, but also having the ally bubble to keep his friends alive, you know, keep them fighting, especially those supports. So pretty deserved player of the match by Fury there. But, you know, I would say the Fuel, they had some good moments there. They had a nice resurgence, almost got the counter full hold on Kings Row, you know, brought the clock down by 3 minutes. But then once Carpe took the mirror match on Ashe, just kind of fell apart from there. That beautiful pick onto Doha, pretty impressive.
And I think this match just kind of continues a storyline that we've really been seeing this month in particular, Jake, where there is a big divide between the top of the Overwatch League in North America and everyone else, where we have these teams like the Fusion, like the Eternal, like the Shock, that are just leagues above everyone else.
And for me, there have been some improvements, you know, from teams like the Fuel. I think Note had a nice job on Sigma there, you know, did some, had some good plays, had some big moments. But when it comes down to like the overall team play, the strategy, that's where Philly just had them beaten. Like that, you know, coming out on the unconventional comp first round and then back to the full standard, it makes the full standard strategy surprising in and of itself. So Fuel, you know, tripped themselves up with this counter dive Orisa style that just falls flat against Orisa Sigma. It just doesn't compete in the value game. So from Philly Fusion, they can pull out any look. They can pull out the unconventional stuff, you know, play that to a T, but also, you know, the basic strategies that everyone fields, they play them exceptionally well. And when you have that sort of versatility as a team, it's very hard to game plan against. So I don't want to like criticize the Fuel for those decisions. I think maybe they could have been quicker to go to McCree on the first round of Koth. Maybe they should have rolled out on the Sigma on second round, but it's so hard in match. You're trying to counter what you guess the enemy team's going to do, and when they're playing unpredictably, that's so difficult to do right. So props to the Fusion for just staying ahead of the curve here.
Well, that was our first match of the day. Coming up next, it's going to be the Valiant taking on the Outlaws, and it's heading at you in a flash.
so we just kill him, and then we win.
Just eating them up.
There you go.
Eating them up.
The amount of damage he's going to just unleash. Speaking of unleashing damage, that's the coalescence in a very tight corridor.
Oh, no, 4 a.m.
Oh, no. It's not me in your house, it's Shags. You gotta actually be worried this time.
See, people might have been thinking I was kidding when I said we'd be back in a flash, but no, we're already back. ZP here with Jake, and this one, Jake, is going to be interesting. Valiant versus the Outlaws, both teams known for their highs and their lows.
Yeah, potentially, or I think expectedly going to be a closer match here. Both teams that have had ups and downs. The Valiant, certainly no stranger to that, having a 3-0 dominant victory and then dropping 0-3 to the Atlanta Reign. So, explosive performances, but also some devastating losses from their side. As we go back, though, to this classic double shield meta, I think this could be actually a comfort zone for both teams. The Valiant in particular, KSP's hit scan has really just been deadly all season long, looking like one of our best rookies this year and a real diamond in the rough that the Valiant were able to get their hands on.
I think it's important to note for the Valiant is that this is a team that has overperformed expectations all year long, right? Where people looked at the team in the preseason going, they're not going to do anything. We don't know half these players. And then a lot of these players ended up performing above expectations. So they've had high highs, especially earlier in the year. Maybe over the last month, things have been a little bit tougher, but I'd almost expect that from a team that has a lot of rookies to sort of get used to the grind of the season and eventually come back up the top form.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about KSP. I know I'm always hyping him up, but some other players in the Valiant roster that I really want to highlight as well would be their support line. When Lastro and Rain play together, they both look incredibly impressive. And it's a BAP meta, which I think is a not that Lastro and Rain are bad at the BAP break, but really I think when that Ana comes out, it's just such an impressive sight to behold. And the two of them, they just have beautiful synergy when it comes to staying alive, protecting their teammates. And that support line, I think, is particularly crucial this meta, especially the Batiste role has such a high impact in the double shield meta in particular.
You can think about things from the Valiant's perspective coming this too, Jake, is that the Valiant right now, they're 1-1 in the qualifiers for the Countdown Cup. And Houston, no matter how you look at it, Houston's sort of like one of those weird teams where you never think they're an easy win because they could play up really high. But if you're thinking about matches you can win to solidify your standings, I think you come into this as a Valiant going, this should be a winnable game.
Definitely. I mean, if anything, I think the Valiant have been a little bit of a stronger team all season long. You look at the record, it reflects that, where Houston had some early struggles, did hit their stride, but now, recently haven't done as well. However, for Houston, I think going back to the lack of a hero pool is actually good for them. I think Hydration's Orisa looks like by far his best hero. He's actually a really, really strong Orisa player, which sort of makes sense coming from, his history in the DPS role, where, that tracking weapon that Orisa has, combined with her sort of being a playmaking main tank, and less of one that is all about grinding the mechanics for endless hours the way heroes like Winston and the Primal Rage are.
So we're talking about the ups and downs of the teams, and you look at the Outlaws. Outlaws fans are going to bring it back to some painful recent history. They lost to the Justice in their last matchup, and on one hand, you go into a match like that and you go, sure, the Outlaws are struggling a little bit, but do we expect them to lose to the Justice, a team that's been really down in the dumps? And the answer is they did, and I would go to you, is this just the Outlaws slumping, or was it just the hero pool being very against them to a degree?
Well, to be honest, I think this is the match that will be the bellwether of that, right? Like, is this an internal issue with the team? Are they struggling? Or is this just a composition and a style that they're not so comfortable playing? My intuition is that the Outlaws will do better with these slower compositions because they allow them to focus more on individual plays, individual efficiency, rather than being super coordinated and working as a six-man unit the way that's really what Dive is all about, being incredibly coordinated, working together perfectly. Whereas the double shield comp, there's a lot more individual playmaking that goes on. You've got these hit scans that just find solo pickoffs essentially. Yes, there's things like the halt combo, but it's just a lot easier to pull off than a synergized dive where you need to fight for map control and then somehow manage to dive as one.
Well, we like getting into the mental aspects here and just thinking how much the teams think they can win. And we got some time to talk with KSF, and let me tell you, he definitely thinks the Valiant have it.
Well, hero pool is being lifted for this upcoming week because you can get a lot more creative and you don't have to stick to the rigged meta that hero pools creates. But I don't think it'll really affect our match at all. There's only one outcome that can come of this match, us versus Outlaws, and that's us winning. I don't see any other outcome happening, so I don't think it'll affect the match at all, but it should be interesting.
I feel like that's the norm, right? To have that level of confidence as a player. And I mean, it's something you know well too, Jake. When you're a pro player, how often when you were asked, hey, how do you think you're going to do, did you ever respond, if ever, oh no, I think we're going to get rolled over. The other team's just too good.
Yeah, that's a pretty depressing mental place to be. And as a player, I think it's your job to be confident, because being confident gives you the best odds to win. Like, genuinely, it has an impact on your performance. If you're feeling good, you're feeling confident, you're going to play better. So part of it is just psyching yourself up and believing those things, regardless of you know, like, I would say the quote-unquote the facts, because any game, obviously any given day, you can outperform. You know, even if a team's been historically stronger, or, you know, you've been historically strong, anytime you go into the match, the mindset's critical. The external factors like past performance technically don't matter, right? Technically, it's a new match. You know, your record is irrelevant. You know, there's a best of 5 series, right? Like, it's pretty straightforward to figure out who wins. Win one fight at a time. So I think that's what the confident mindset enables you to do. If you're confident, you don't worry about past issues. You don't worry about past mistakes. You focus on executing here and now, and that's how every pro player should approach it.
Now, one of the interesting matchups we have to look at here, and I think there's a lot, but in particular, look at the hit scan battle. It's KSP on one side, one of the strongest rising rookies, versus Linkser, one of the most veteran players. And I think it's very interesting because I look at KSP, Jake, I see a player that's remarkably consistent, and I look at Linkser, a player where when Linkser is on, I think there's few better than him in the entire game. But, you know, Linkser's day-to-day performance, sometimes up, sometimes down. You know, what do you think when you look at these two clashing, especially on heroes like Ashe?
Yeah, I think you put it together really well there, ZP. I think where Linkser has had those incredibly high highs, he has had some moments of trouble too. So I think, though, this season in general has been a more consistent one for him than seasons past. Seems like he's had a bit of a revitalization, the team playing maybe a little bit more effectively around him, enabling him to have that confidence to succeed on those core hit scan roles. And at the same time, you know, I think when you look down the rest of the roster, this makes sense, right? With the lineup of Hydration and Meko looking great on the Orisa Sigma, that really has a significant impact on your hit scan performance, how your tanks play, because hit scan is the most space consuming role in the game. You need your tanks to be fighting for you. You need them to be opening up sight lines so that you can play in relative safety compared to the enemy DPS. So, you know, I think there's a lot of factors going into it, but I definitely think that is a duel to watch. The Widow or the Ashe that comes out on top is going to really offer a ton to their team here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too because, you know, you think the KSP, right? Where KSP in the middle of a rookie season, we're sure, you know, a player that has played in things like the Overwatch World Cup, but you think back to your rookie season, Jake, what was going through your mind when you would go up against a veteran like Linkser going, oh boy, you know, I'm up against this person that's, you know, been more of a veteran. I guess in your case it's different because everyone was a rookie, but, you know, there were still players that were more sort of seen as, you know, veterans of the scene going back to the pre-OWL days at the time. And if you were up against one of those monoliths of the scene, you know, what really went through your head?
Honestly, I think, you know, I think the mindset that I had, and that I think probably most rookie players should take, is that, you know, who cares about that? Like, it doesn't matter what people did yesterday, last week, last year. This is about performing in the game right now. And if you're a rookie, if you're hungry to prove yourself, you know, I think you can see an advantage in that. Like, oh, this guy's been around, you know, he's going to be overconfident, you know, thinks that he's better than me. Well, I can perform too. And I think, you know, to be a rookie player and to succeed, it means that they're already thinking that way. They're not accepting, oh, this guy's more experienced than me. That just doesn't matter. If you're a player who's hungry, if you're a player who has that will to succeed, then honestly, that's only more appetizing to you. The fact that you have the chance to unseat somebody who, you know, was known as a great player. Well, if I can beat you, then I'm even better than you, right? And so I think, if anything, it only makes the victory sweeter, and that's what you should be focused on if you're a rookie going up against a superstar or just an up-and-coming player on ladder playing against pros. Like, don't give them that respect. I mean, you need to acknowledge their skill and play intelligently. Don't you know, play like a totally ridiculous overconfident style, but at the same time play your game and, you know, have confidence that you can win, that you can take those like advantage duels. You know, sometimes you have that advantage duel, and if you give too much respect, you might back off and instead push the advantage, right? Stay on the pressure. That's what the rookies should be thinking.
So as we're looking at the different factors in this game, you know, we're going to shift back over to the Houston side and note what a season this has been for Dante so far, where Dante's had some big breakout matches, and now we're seeing Sombra a little bit more back into the meta recently, you know, across the Overwatch League scene. You know, for the Outlaws and the comps they're going to play today, you think we will be seeing some of that Dante Sombra?
Well, very possible. Other teams have made it work. I think Dante's Genji is also pretty top tier. The Tracer as well. You know, I think that's really his wheelhouse, is those flanker style heroes. Have seen him training a little bit more of other roles, but I love to see him on the flankers. I think that's where he's most comfortable and most successful. I was actually talking with Dante recently about the difficulty of, trying to be a more vocal player on the team, trying to step up and be a bit of a leader there. And it's a real challenge on the flankers, but I think you couldn't tell from Dante's performance. He's been playing really well this season, and the fact that he's now taking on more of a vocal role, it makes it all the more impressive to me, because traditionally I think the flankers, that's the most difficult heroes to play a vocal role on, when you're trying to stay alive on Tracer and half the heroes in the game can just one-shot you. To be thinking about the team strategy and overall game plan and communicating those things, it can be really difficult. For 1 second you're unfocused and you're just going to die because of it. So for Dante, he's really got his work cut out for him if he's going to try and be that vocal player for the team, be that leadership figure, and at the same time have great games playing flankers that need to be so focused on their individual gameplay.
And I think about factors back over to the Valiant side, right? Where, we have seen a match in recent history where Lastro's out of the lineup, but we got Lastro back in the lineup today, and, people wonder, well, whoa, why is the Valiant outplaying way more heavily than we expected this season, where they've picked up more wins, and I think people gave them credit for. Right now they're 9-8 on the season, and you think where most people place them, most people thought they would be down in Boston territory, and clearly they performed anything but one of the biggest factors for the Valiant has just been sort of the emergence of Lastro and what he's been able to bring to that team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Lastro's a big factor. McGravy as well, another player I want to highlight. Had some showings in the scene, but I think a lot of people underrated him. He was on, relatively weaker teams that didn't have a ton of success. But I think this has been the season he's come into his own. And on the Sigma in particular, he looks really well practiced. He's definitely a grinder, somebody who puts in a ton of work to succeed. So it's always good, at least in my mind, to see a player like that who's so motivated and passionate, to see them rise to the top, step up to the occasion, and be a consistent force for the team. Sigma is an incredibly high-impact hero this season. You cannot get by with a weak Sigma here in the Overwatch League.
Definitely not, but we are ready to head into Nepal. It's going to be Village, the first stage that we're taking a look at here, and we'll get some insight as to what both teams want to run. We're already, Fusion was a little bit surprising earlier in the day, deciding to run with the Zarya, keep it up. Wonder if we'll see more of that here, and the Outlaws flash a little bit of Jay Silly. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'd love to see it.
It's actually not totally ridiculous on this stage in particular. I think this is one of those places that you can make it work if both teams come into the high ground choke. However, if Valiant actually do roll out with this dive comp with Pharah, then they're basically guaranteed to win mid. Like, there's no answers to Pharah in this comp. But there's not a Mercy or a healer for Pharah, so I'm actually really surprised. This is a pretty weird comp from Valiant. It's going to be all on. Okay, so Rain speed boosting, he's going to be on the Mercy. And Outlaws, this is going to be tough. The Junkrat does nothing really against Pharah or Ashe, so I wonder if Dante's actually going to head back to spawn. Looks like he will, actually.
Yeah, because right now you have the ground explosive hero versus the air explosive hero, and there's a bit of advantage right now to the air Pharah, as it turns out. The Valiant get the first two pickoffs with ease. KSP and KSF immediately connecting, and just like that, the Junkrat dream, it's dead.
I like the idea. I think it's an attempt playing the Sim and the Junk to go all in against an enemy that, plays a slow choke-based style. That's where Junk and Sim are really profitable. But this is just a composition outplay. Like, there's basically no way you could ever win that mid-fight playing the comp you are. So now Houston has to retake with the Hydration Rein.
Well, the pile driver right to the back, setting up KSF. Everyone from the Valiant getting in on that. That was a nice setup by Dreamer. Just got exactly what he was looking for.
Yeah, and Hydration going to take a ton of pressure here. At least Repel is going to be getting a lot of nano boost, but the Valiant are in total control here, and I'm worried for Outlaws here. They don't have a means to suppress both of the DPS at the same time, right? Linkster can either turn to the sky and look up at KSF, but if he does that, then KSP is going to be shooting in the back. Lastro is going to be throwing in nades, so this is a very difficult composition to execute. Dante trying to put some point pressure on, but
great to respect the barrage. Comes in over the top. A decent amount of deflection, but it still gets Linkster, so it ends up being a trade, but you're down your McCree now. It puts a lot more pressure onto Dante, and the Resurrection is there, so the Valiant, they're still at a full 6. KSF back to where he was just a moment ago, and the Outlaws just get picked off.
Yeah, and Nano is on Dante. He's doing a bit, but it's just not enough. Not able to actually get any kills. The dive comp is so effective here from Valiant. I love the way they're playing this. The pressure from the tanks is just perfectly placed on the choke. And Outlaws, they've never been able to actually get out and stabilize. Linkster's just being attacked so aggressively here. It looks like they're going to change their approach. And Dante, he is at least behind. He is in the back line. Could start things off with some aggression on the Ana, but look at McGravy. He's just constantly hunting around, constantly turning, looking for that Tracer. So Dante is not going to have an easy time finding something here.
Not in the least. The Valiant up 83% to 0. This could be the final opportunity for the Outlaws to turn it around, and they're doing it against the odds. Nano boost on the KSF. KSF just going to walk over. KSP down, so KSF needs to get something here, and does just that. Finds Repel. Dreamer picks off Linkster on the outside, and the Outlaws down in numbers. They retake the point, but the Valiant, I don't think they're going to leave anytime soon here, Jake. They're still keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, nice beat from Jexa. He held it as long as possible. They are going to be able to get McGravy with it. That's a huge pickoff, and Meko's Matrix just completely negates the barrage. So it seems like Houston might be stabilizing. Linkster back fast on the Soldier 76, a rare sight here in the Overwatch League, but we're blessed with it today.
That was sneaky by Meko, where the reason why they went for the barrage, I mean, okay, even swapping up heroes, I just don't think that they realized the Diva was there, and Meko just sort of goes, by the way, still here, comes out under the bridge and saves the team.
Yeah, the self-destruct from McGravy didn't really get any value, and he was actually punished for it. So Jex's beat really is what I want to highlight there. He waited so long to use that ultimate, despite having only 4 players on his team, and that patience really pays off. I think that's why they're able to hold on to the fight here. And now this retake looks a bit difficult for Valiant. They do have a minefield, though.
Pulse bomb, Dante looking for it. Not enough to get the kill. Meanwhile, the Valiant still at full HP. KSF in danger. Oh, there's a shatter from Hydration. Knocks down 2, but okay, Hydration ends up falling on the other end. It's 4v4 between the teams. Meko self-destruct evening it up to a degree. And now the Valiant, I mean, are they going to head over the point? It's looking like they are.
Linkster has stayed alive throughout the course of this fight. He's still putting out the damage. Dante's going to come back on the Sombras. This is anybody's fight, but McGravy has 100 energy. He has to die, or else I don't think the Outlaws are going to be able to get this one.
Valiant in here in the point. The Outlaws desperately trying to evict. Dante super low. Desperate for any form of healing. A bit out of the fight. Linkster ends up falling. Dante now ready to go back in. 5-on-5 between the teams. McGravy, though, charged up, ready to go. Just melting. Builds the grab, drops it. And that's going to be the finisher. The Valiant take round 1.
Yeah, Jexy falling. I mean, he had to cast beat there. He just barely charged it up. There's no choice. He's low HP, but KSF beautifully cancels that, kills the Lucio before the beat comes down. I think that round, though, is actually, if anything, a little bit hopeful for the Outlaws. The way that mid and the second fight started out, Outlaws just had absolutely nothing. So the fact that they were able to retake and, you know, get so close to actually winning that round, pretty impressive from them. However, the Valiant, they just had the ultimates in the end. McGravy switching to the Zarya and just outvaluing. As well, the Outlaws, they're not fielding a Brig there, which is sort of the origin of, you know, they started on a Rhine comp, so they stayed Lucio. But the lack of a Brig once you're on a dive mirror is incredibly punishing. Lucio just doesn't offer the same amount, despite Jexa having a great game.
So we do have a quick pause here where I think it ended up showing the stream from Houston coach, all in caps, a bit of a microphone issue. So communication for the Outlaws perhaps a little bit lacking in the middle of the series. Who knows? But something that Houston is working on now. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting setup between both teams. And hey, we're back in, so don't have to sit here and talk about a pause. We can get back into it. Now, as we look forward to the next round here, we see Dante going over the Junkrat again. Does Junkrat make a little bit more sense here?
Yeah, I mean, Sanctum is another place where Junkrat, I mean, this, Nepal in general, I think those, especially, you know, everything but Shrine is actually a pretty decent Junkrat map, but pretty much going to go back to the standard. I think they're worried about the potential of another crazy dive mid from Valiant, who aren't going to run it this time, but I like the conservative play from the Outlaws. Don't get caught on something you don't want to stick to. Jexa, very interestingly, though, is going to stay on the Lucio, so going to be looking for some big boop offs to outvalue Brig, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to find those.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, you do have more environmental options here on this stage than most of the other areas in the game. Dante standing up here on the Genji flank, waits for the halt, dashes in, Linkster gets the pick off the halt, so Lastro out of the fight immediately. Some decent build for Dante, and the Outlaws start out pretty well here.
That's nice team play to burst the halt. Now Meko's charging in, incredible aggression, aggressive on Mortality Field as well, and the lack of a Batiste, they just cannot sustain. You know, even with the Lucio, you really do need that BAP, so just a very clutch pickoff, rather, by Houston there. The dash comes in from Dante, the body shot from Linkster. It's sort of everyone contributing at once to get the pick on the enemy BAP. And that gets them the mid. A little bit of control for Valiant, but not significant. And what really matters here is that Repel has an Ant Matrix, and there's no response really for the Valiant because Lastro died so early.
Yeah, Lastro got out of the fight early, isn't able to build ult. And then you look at the Outlaws too. Linkster has great positioning now as Widow, the defensive Widow. It's what you love to see.
Yeah, KSP has charged pretty impressively fast Bob here, though, so we'll see if that is enough to disrupt the Ant Matrix as KSP attacks from the flank.
KSP looking to set up the right Bob angle, and already so much pressure on the Gravy. Lastro just barely dropping the Mortality Field, but it's enough to keep the Valiant in the fight, so great Mortality Field, but KSP caught towards the very end. Dante was able to find him. And Jexa, well...
Jexa sends Bob to the pit.
Yep. Kind of knew that would happen. Rip Bob. But the Outlaws looking pretty good here, Jake. 40-7%.
Yeah, and the Lucio is working out pretty well in this stage. The fact of that death pit, right, it just completely disposed of the Bob. So it is actually working. Dante with another pickup on the enemy DPS. Quick flux onto McGravy. He's getting attacked down, and the Outlaws, they're just really taking over now on this map.
The Valiant need to cool off, Jake. They've gone into these fights without a plan multiple times in a row. The Outlaws are punishing mistakes in positioning very heavily. And look, if you're the Valiant, you look at the situation, you got time for one more good reset, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the Valiant are going without a plan. I actually like the idea of splitting up against Widow because it allows you to pressure her out of those flanks. However, the Outlaws responded accordingly, and they sent their own Sigma and Lucio to fight those flanks. So the power of this Lucio is pretty realistic here, especially as they're coming close to the edge of the map, and Jex is set up for a big boot.
So the Valiant, last opportunity to come back in. Lastro was able to find Dante early. Jexa hoping to send someone off the ledge, but does not happen. The Valiant looking clean on the entry this time around. Jexa's beat, not really able to turn things around at all. And Lastro just keeping his footing solid, and this should be the Valiant on the retake. And as Jexa gets KSP towards the end, the Valiant just need the head over to the point. They take it, and now we'll see how long they can hold it.
Yeah, this is a really bad situation, though, for the Outlaws. They committed everything to try and get that fight. It was a complete all-in in terms of their ultimates now. So now it's Valiant in a position to actually have a great chance to come back and win this round and win the map outright because they have total ultimate control here. And with the Outlaws lacking any sort of ultimate to open the fight, it's probably pretty easy here for the Valiant to just use 1 or 2 ultimates at a time to just get easy fight wins. So Outlaws, they need some sort of big pickoff. Repel's window as Amp Matrix could be what they need to start it off, but it's got to be perfect.
SF ready to go. Blade trying to slice through the Outlaws. Immortality Field's there, but now it's gone. And the Outlaws getting ripped to shreds as the Valiant now begin their comeback. Remember, they take this round. That's the map.
Yeah, well, at least that was the Supercharger Blade, which is arguably the individually strongest ultimate combo that the Valiant have. So they did commit 2 key ultimates. However, they've got Flux, Rally, and Bob coming online, and Matrix coming online. So the Outlaws need to play this fight very well. They're going to be behind in the ultimates probably for the rest of the round. So maybe 2 fights left, but the time bank is certainly becoming a significant factor here for the Outlaws. They're pushing in.
Well, the Outlaws, they need to take this fight quickly if they want 2 fights. Otherwise, it's just going to be 1. If it's 1 fight, bodes well for the Valiant. McGravy, Flux versus Mekko's Flux. Both teams still up, but Dante gets caught by Lastro as Lastro's just been DPS BAP and then some towards the latter half of this round. Now 80%, the Outlaws have just 1 fight left.
Yeah, and the problem is that's an even trade of ultimates. Yes, you committed Bob, so it's actually not a little bit more commitment from Valiant. However, they had such a big advantage once they flip point that they're still hanging on to it. Early rally from Rain and the aggression, no limit here for the Valiant. This is potentially a good play, but it could be punished as Outlaws managed to outlast for now.
Trying to leverage the rally makes a lot of sense. They dive into the Outlaws, and it's too much, too tanky from the rally. The Valiant seize the initiative. Overtime starting to tick down. Dante, a blade to try and bring things back, gets rocked in the face. The Valiant, they have the numbers advantage. They have the point. The Outlaws now in a win to prayer, trying to bring things back, but here's KSF. The blade to perhaps end it, finds Repel and Mekko. And the Valiant take down the Outlaws on map 1.
Yeah, I think that round just kind of comes back to that moment where the Outlaws tried to win when they were at 99%, committed all their ultimates, and it just really fell apart. They didn't even force any ultimates out of the Valiant. The Valiant were able to just win that very, very cleanly. So great outplays from the Valiant to come back in that round. And for the first round, just a strategic outmatch. The Junkrat Cobb's great at holding the choke. Doesn't really do anything to a Far Mercy.
No, not really. I mean, look, I appreciate the pandering to a degree. It's just saying, like, look, Dad, are you proud of me? And I don't think you were in that case, Jake. I don't think you were.
It's a good idea. I think it has merit if the enemy plays a standard double shield comp. However, when they don't, you just get heavily punished. So that map basically going as expected. A bit of a gamble for the Outlaws. It doesn't pay off this time. However, that second round was a lot closer. And I think if the Outlaws had been a little bit more careful with their ultimates in holding point, got a little bit more value there, they did have a chance to win that round. But ultimately, the Valiant, just the stronger team right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there you saw some flashes from Houston where, I mean, I think you play that round 10 times with the advantage Houston had, they probably win it like 8 of those times. But, the Valiant, they stayed cool under pressure, and, the person I'd go back and point to where it was great play overall for the Valiant, but Lastro just coming in big on the map, finding key pickoffs in fights that got a little bit scrappy, and when you can get big contribution from your supports, it just helps a lot.
Yeah, and he got that pickoff on the Dante when Dante popped Blade even on the initial retake, and then again on I think the second or third try from the Outlaws to come back and flip the point again. So great work from Lastro. As well, I want to highlight Rain. He saved that rally almost the whole round long. Just never needed to use it, but had the patience just hold on to the ultimate. The fact that it's always in reserve, it's always a threat that Houston has to be mindful of, makes it very difficult for a hero like Genji to get aggressive, because when you do fully commit for a kill, you know that that rally is just going to be popped, you're going to get cut down, and overall you're just going to get outvalued. So I think for the Outlaws' purpose there, they just needed to get more value out of their ultimates on that. When they did have that 99% control, they committed everything and got actually nothing. I mean, even if they had just lost the fight but traded all their ultimates, it would have been okay, but in this case, they didn't really get any forces out. So Valiant, great discipline by them to not be surprised or overwhelmed by the number of ultimates Houston commit and just stay tight, play together, and counter with their basic abilities.
Now, as we head into Gibraltar, you think back to the previous series, and we saw a lot of Winston Zarya coming out on Gibraltar. For the style of play that we've seen from the Valiant and the Outlaws, where at times they really do like hanging back, relying on their hit scan, do you think we're still going to see a Winston Zarya setup here from one or both teams, or do you think that we're going to see Gibraltar played in a little bit slower of a fashion with double shield? What do you expect?
Honestly, I don't know how this map goes in scrims as far as the double shield comp. I would probably favor the double shield, at least for the Houston side. They do look a lot better on that comp than other strategies. So I'd like to see them playing double shield, playing that slow style that just focuses on, fighting with the halts, getting big value on those combo plays, and a little bit less of the full six-man coordination that's required to play dive. So for the Valiant side, though, I think it's sort of open season for them. McGravy's looks great on the Diva when he does pull it out, so you could even see that Winston Diva. Looks like both teams are going to favor the dive, so I'm guessing the way how many teams have gone to this style, this must be really dominant in scrims. The dive style just kind of taking over the meta.
Now, the interesting part here when you look at the dive is that it's a more old-school dive. It's Winston Diva. You don't quite see the Zarya coming into play like you did in the previous series, where, of course, Fury was fantastic. So it is going to be something that, to a degree, a little bit more traditional, as much as you can be with a Brig in the lineup.
Yeah, I think if you're going to mirror the Widows, that's where the Diva really starts to make a ton of sense, because this is a hero that needs to be shut down. And if you don't have a double dive DPS like Genji Sombra, then a Diva is like another way to shut down the enemy Widow. But KSP and Lynx here, this duel is going to be explosive, and it's certainly going to be high impact going into Gibraltar. Widow is a crucial hero on this map. There's a lot of wide open sight lines. Dante Sombra as well. Clutch hacks
Dante
open
coming out
this
to
fight.
Sombra makes a lot of sense, given his history. KSP set up here on the Widow in the back. And soon KSP and Lynx are going to be looking at each other. And Jake, are you still there?
Yes, I am still there. Can you not hear me, ZP?
No, you cut out for just a moment, but you're back. You're
okay. Good. Well, luckily I am back, and we'll see, though, now as McGravy poking forward on this Diva. It's the trade on the high ground really critical, so I like how the Valiant are playing this passively, looking to just retake this position from Houston when they move forward.
Lynxer hanging in the back. The Outlaws right now just keeping consistent progress. About 40 seconds, 45 seconds off the clock. Hydration, though, setting up here on the Winston. Ready to dive to the back, put some pressure onto KSP, and KSP running for his life. The peel there coming in. Hydration under a little bit more pressure, but look at that!
Nice.
Lynxer was able to find KSP after he gets corralled into the right line of sight. That was a well-executed play from the Outlaws, but KSF looking to deny it, takes down Repel. Now back to 5-on-5, even as the Outlaws continue moving the payload.
Yeah, they don't have an Ana, though, so these tanks, they're going to be staying low. You see Meko on low HP, not able to really restore himself. Nano comes out onto KSF, the Nano Blade as well. Not going to get too much, but it's just enough.
Ends up with
it is more.
3.
Oh,
yeah, never underestimate KSF. Ends up with some flashy cleanup there. Now 2.5 minutes left for the Outlaws, so they got close, but not quite close enough.
Yeah, it is a nice hold for Valiant. They get it done. However, it's very expensive in terms of ultimates. They do have to pay the Nano Blade, which is their strongest combo. So almost 6 ults online for the Outlaws. This is their moment really to strike, especially because Lynxer has the first Infra Sight. So the setup is going to be very easy for the green team here.
Yeah, I mean, it's making Dante's life about as stress-free as it possibly could be here. The Valiant already getting low in the neutral game before the EMP even comes out. But Hydration gets caught, just bursted down, isn't able to use Primal. And as a result, the Outlaws, I mean, I think they're stuck waiting again here, Jake.
Yeah, Dreamer had to use his Primal as well to disrupt, and I think Hydration must have been stunned down there, maybe slept so he couldn't get the Primal off. So nice work by the supports of the Valiant to make that one happen, and KSF with another staggered pick onto Linkser. Now KSP has bridged the gap with Infrasight, so Dante is going to be much more awkward to get his EMP off this fight despite how many ultimates that Houston Outlaws have right here.
Well, it's a reverse of the situation we had before, right? Where he had the Infrasight, the set as EMP, and then someone got picked off so he couldn't do it. Now he has to go EMP into the Infrasight, and it's tough, but okay. You take down KSF early. That's an opportunity. You drop the EMP. Only it's 2, but if they get Streamer, it should be good enough. The Outlaws right now up 6-4, and Hydration looking for a little bit more. Some juggling in the back.
Yeah, I like that he's actually going to back out of that because the forward spawns are coming in for Valiant. So Houston just going to elect to, instead of trying to get these forward kills, gets clean up the people in the back. So these are the late staggers they're actually looking for.
So the Outlaws getting through point A, still a decent amount of time remaining, 3 minutes, 20 seconds, but that can go away quickly if you lose even one fight here on point B.
Yeah, point B is all about the snowball. If it gets reset at any point, you're in trouble. However, the Outlaws have transitioned to a full dive style, so it's going to be a little bit harder, I think, for KSP to find space.
KSF, he gets Nano. The hope was he built Blade immediately. KSP's had the fight, so it's all about KSF, and KSF is taken down! Neutralized in the corner. The Outlaws had the answer. And now the Outlaws start piling it on. The Valiant getting staggered 1 by 1. And if you're the Valiant, how do you come back in here for point B?
It's going to be tough. That's a fierce opener, by the way, by Dante. Just absolutely dominating KSP's Widow at the close range. No fear of the headshot. KSP going to switch over to the McCree, but retaking on McCree here is really rough. As you can see them coming through this choke. The hack on McGravy, so he can't self-destruct. Such an impact play by Dante.
Now they have to hope Dreamer's able to Primal, get a little bit of disruption. Okay, KSP, that's a start. Finds Linkser on the top. The EMP in from Dante. It's such a huge EMP. Hits everyone. But McCree doesn't really care a whole lot from the top, so still some pressure from KSP. Finds Repel. But I don't know how long the Valiant are going to be able to delay. So far, they've been doing a good job of it. Big EMP or no. And a lot of it was KSP who lived for an enormously long time on top.
Yeah.
Dreamer's coming back in.
Linkser, I like this commit. Just lock it up. Just the spawns are so close for Valiant. They are going to keep fighting. McGravy does have self-destruct. So with both tank ults, this could be the start of a comeback actually in this fight. Lastro's coming back with the nano boost. Spawns are very far away. That kill by Linkser is very high impact though. That might be enough to secure the cap.
McGravy and Dreamer still on the point. How long can the Valiant sustain here? So far, it's looking to be a while. The Nano onto Dreamer. KSF back on over. The Outlaws just struggling to push through this final few meters into point B. And here come the respawns here for the Valiant. KSF, the Blade, takes down one, looking for more. Pooped away as Jex is just saying, please, God, get away from me. Able to stay alive on top just for a little bit longer. KSP under heavy Winston pressure. Down he goes. But KSF is taking on the reins in the back line.
Wow, this fight is incredible from the Valiant. They're doing a great job just going 1 by 1 on the cart. KSF in particular has gotten a lot of value in this extended fight, and despite some heroics from the Houston Outlaws, somehow it's brought back by the Valiant. I think back to KSP's 2 picks when he came out on McCree that one time, managed to slip into the back line and shut down Repel, and you know, without that Ana, they just couldn't close it out here on the Outlaws. That's really a soul-crushing loss in the team fight.
Yeah, I mean, even with the EMP that hit everyone, right, is that McCree's the one here in the game that doesn't really care a whole lot about getting hit by the EMP. No one was looking at him, and it just did enough. And looking at that, Dante, very close, not quite close enough on the sneak. As the Outlaws, I mean, the final 30 seconds is all about the EMP.
Yeah, one thing though is in a fight like that, it's very hard to keep track of ultimates, so they might not be ready for Dante's EMP here coming in. High Noon just pretty much creating space, and this is going to be a big one. Hits 4, especially Rain, who cannot get off that rally.
KSF's down immediately, and now you look to KSP again, but Linkser has the Blade, playing door duty right now. But the question is, can they get everyone off the point? They do, and the Outlaws, they get to point C, but now, Jake, they're pretty low on time.
Yeah, this is time to keep the snowball rolling here. But Valiant, despite losing that fight, they have a ton of ultimates to work with. So I think a cap here, a final cap for the Outlaws, is above expectations here. If Valiant just play the ult game efficiently, they should be in great position. This rally, I just don't see how you really deal with a rally. Like, the beat helps, but you probably, both teams are going to be in a wash when those support ults come out, and the rally just lasts longer.
I feel like the Outlaws just have to get the EMP of the gods here, right? Like, Dante can definitely build EMP in the final minute, and then you use that to neutralize all the damage, because it's not going to be this fight, as Repel just gets sliced down immediately. KSF walking forward now. At some point, might need to back up under very heavy pressure, but the Valiant are still healthy. They're still keeping things back, but just the gravy. Valiant have to be careful here, Jake. They don't want to push too far forward.
Yeah, and the fact that Rain, once again, he's been so disciplined on this rally. He's able to hold on to in that team fight. Oh, man, that's actually huge for the Valiant, that they use the Nano Blade, but the beat doesn't actually counter it because Repel just gets to cut down too quickly. So Valiant, they're in great position now. Rally advantage is there. Dante's EMP will have to be massive, as you said. But Linkser, even then, with the EMP, his Blade success isn't guaranteed.
All eyes on Dante. What's the EMP going to be? Is enough to allow Houston to bring this to the end. The Valiant, they're looking good here so far. Dreamer heads to the back, uses the Primal, gets bioed early. And doesn't really matter, still finds Jexa, is able to potentially get out here, gets hacked towards the end, but gets back to the rest of his team. And all the while, Dante hasn't had a good chance to drop the EMP, has been holding on to it the entire time, finally uses it, hits Lastro and KSP in the back, but I think it's too little too late.
Yeah, this should be an easy cleanup here. Nano onto Meko to keep the fight going, but you know that's sort of what happens when you get into the last point. You have no ultimates. The enemy has 5. Valiant, they played it textbook there, just playing it smart, especially with a rally there, consistently saving that ultimate for those crucial extended dive fights where the armor is just insurmountable advantage. KSP on the McCree in particular too, looking really sharp. Those headshots. I mean, once he gets off Widow, I really think the Sombra Genji becomes a lot harder to play. Widow is that hero that you can kind of rely on as a weakness that is really vulnerable to getting jumped on by divers. However, the McCree, not necessarily that way. A McCree that stays with his Brig and his Ana is going to be a very difficult force to deal with. Can poke you down at range. He can flash you when you're close. So he has a little bit more versatility there.
So now we're going to be swapping up rounds. The Outlaws, highs and lows. And in a way, it almost felt like that round was a microcosm of their season. But now you look towards the series as a whole, you don't really want to go down 2 maps. I mean, not that any team does, but I think it's going to be difficult for the Outlaws at best to try and bring it back should that happen. So you look at their defense here. What are the benchmarks the Outlaws need to hit to hold off the Valiant, where the Valiant right now are in a great spot?
Yeah, I think for the Outlaws, it's going to be all about getting the most out of this Sombra because the Nano Blades are going to hit hard and they're going to be coming fast. That's what KSF and Lastro have been doing all series long. Great Primal as well here by Dreamer on this replay. Did a nice job disrupting the enemy team and picking off the enemy Brig. There couldn't be a more crucial kill in that final fight. But now on the defense, Dante's Sombra, it's really going to be about winning the neutral game fights with easy hacks because if you come down to the ultimate exchange, I think Nano Blade is just a bit stronger than EMP.
Also, the other thing to look at here is just the Widow battle, right? Where it's almost felt a little bit quiet between KSP and Linkser, but at any point in Gibraltar, it's where the Widow can really make their presence known, and you just never know what's going to turn into more of a Widow battle. But Meko already under a lot of pressure here, Bionade out. Outlaws just trying not to bleed anything early.
Dante being really confident with these uncloaks because if KSP finds those headshots, Dante is going to fall. So, I mean, this is a risky way to play, but it is going to charge you EMP a little bit faster. It can maybe put a little bit of mental pressure on KSP as Hydration goes very fast with the scout by Dante. Great combo there.
KSP out of the fight immediately, and I think I like this from the Outlaws right now, where you just be aggressive the entire way through, right? Where sometimes for defenses, you'll let a team get through this part basically for free. I think for how the Outlaws have to defend, applying this level of pressure right now makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and Dante's scouting utility is so valuable here. Hydration having a great game on the Winston, shuts down the enemy DPS again. And, if KSP ever goes for an aggressive angle, Dante's going to cull it out and it's going to be punished. It makes his job so hard here on the offense that Linkser doesn't have to do his own scouting work. He can just rely on Dante's communication.
And Linkser not really under the biggest amount of pressure. Sure, Diva went down under, but Linkser has room to work with. Meanwhile, KSP has to worry about Dante constantly, both the scouting and the actual gun. So the Outlaws keeping the Valiant back, not even letting them get to car wash cleanly, but here we go, Dreamer over the top, gets the nano boost, trying to build Primal and does. Now it's going to be more disruption to the back. The Outlaws getting low across the board. Dante hanging on to the EMP. When's it going to be time to drop it as Dreamer just continues to disrupt?
Nice.
Linkser finds KSP, 6-on-5, and that's going to take the wind out of the sails of the Valiant.
Okay, Linkser with 3 quick headshots in a row. Looking for a highlight reel clip there. That was pretty sweet. Shutting down the enemy DPS. And we talked about the benchmark for the Valiant being the Nano Blade. Well, in that case, it was just too slow building for KSF, so Lastro commits the Nano. And now we're in this awkward off cycle where you've got Blade, but how much is it really going to do against the rally without that Nano to enable you? So this is looking pretty rough now for the Valiant. KSP has not been able to get too much done at all. The one duel he's gotten, he lost. So Linkser so far looking great in that category, really getting maximum value off Dante's Sombra.
And the other thing, too, for Dante was able to save the EMP there. I think the idea is EMP when Blade comes in, shut down the Genji from dashing and getting max value. And now I think the Valiant, maybe they just wait for another nano, but if they do that, they're going to be out of time, Jake. So this is a real dilemma for the Valiant as they look to move in now, trying to isolate hydration. They force out the Primal, but the problem is for them, he's still at Primal. So the Outlaws are not going to lose anything here significantly just yet. Dante, you know he's tempted. He wants to save it for the Blade, but might be the time. And no, KSF gets picked off and Dante just leaves.
Love the patience there. KSP finds one, though, and a pick onto Repel is exactly what they needed. Now they're going to have a rally advantage, so they could have some brawling edge here, but they've got to find more kills with KSF still in the spawn, still resetting.
KSP under heavy pressure, but the support is there. Echo under that in the bottom. And now you look for the Outlaws. Dante drops the EMP. Dreamer ends up falling. The Valiant, though, they have the Nano, they have the Blade. KSF, good to go. The Blade out and ready. 2 slices. Down goes the Diva. Up to the top rope. KSF looking for it. And it's not a ton, but it might be enough. But Linkser on the other side ends up with 3.
Holy.
The problem is, that was the point.
What this guy eat for breakfast, man? Give me some. Those is a ridiculous kill. I think like the whole team is jumping on him. He finds 3 kills. That's pretty wild. Impressive stuff. It's not enough, though, and that's the Nano Blade we talked about, but it took a very long time. So the Outlaws, if they can make one good hold happen here on second point, Valiant are in big trouble. So now it's going to be all on really Dreamer, I think, to open this up with a big Primal, but a Primal that's unsupported by other ultimates, it's a hard ult to get too much value out of, especially if Dante can just hack you. You really need that utility to jump around.
Group off early, stops hydration from getting as much as he'd want from the opening off the Nano. Linkser, still a threat in the back. The Valiant, about 2 minutes left to go here. They move through point B, and they can reverse a lot of this. They just get through here quickly. They take down Repel. That's a good start here for the Valiant.
Yeah, the nade, I think, meant to be at Repel's own feet there, but he ended up throwing it down to the low ground given to his positioning. Dante finds the break, but so does KSP, so it's an even trade. Dante wants to find one more. He's desperate for this frag to KSP, and he gets it in the end. Oh, that's a massive pickoff. Might enable this recontest to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, the Outlaws, that's the upside, right, that they took down a few. The problem is the Valiant, still with a more dominating presence on the point. They're going to drop down immediately. McGravy, hacked, but not for long. Hanging on to the self-destruct. EMP, layered in after, still going to be denying options here for the Valiant. And McGravy
is that Nano lost from Lastro? I think he tried to Nano Dreamer, and the Nano actually just did not get there in time. That's really painful, and now, once again, KSF off sync. He's got Blade almost ready, but there's no Nano to combo, and there doesn't seem like there will be in the rest of this game. So Valiant, pressure on KSP, I would say right now. He needs to find an opening kill, something to give them that free advantage, because they don't have the ultimates to force it.
No, definitely not, especially with a minute left. You're absolutely right. Lastro isn't going to be able to get Nano in time, barring the most ridiculous healing imaginable. And the Outlaws are in a great spot. And okay, Dante again, decloak, looking for the quick pick on the Widow, and gets it! KSP down. And that makes things so much tougher for the Valiant, especially because KSF had used Blade, had invested on the other end. But the early pickup by Dante just completely changes things, even as the Valiant invest ults.
Yeah, Dreamer's running around here with the Primal, but not doing so much more than that. Infrasight comes out from Linkser now, so the push is incredibly telegraphed here, and it's going to be so hard for KSP to get a duel. So you see the team diving in. This bomb from McGravy has to be huge. Does not find anything, though. So as Meko comes back into the fight with his own self-destruct, he's going to be able to put his body on the line here to hold the cart.
Linkser finds Lastro, both teams down in Ana, and now once again, we look to Linkser. Has the shot and gets it. Rain immediately down. And no one's looking at Linkser as much as they should be. And he takes down another. Finally, Linkser falls, but no.
Oh my.
That's the point.
Oh, that was too close for comfort. Meko's still fighting, though. It looks like a 1v2 on point. KSP getting free shots off, but now Repel is back to heal up his Diva. Spawn advantage firmly in the favor of the Outlaws. It looks like this is going to be the full hold. We could be tying up the series here, barring some ridiculous heroics from KSP. But that's one. He goes in aggressive and finds the Nano.
Nano's out, and that's Nano Brigida, the raid boss herself, back into the fray. McGravy, though, is down. The Outlaws on the way back out, and oh no. The Valiant get off the point, or rather forced off, and the Outlaws even up the series 1-1.
I think that was a little bit of a C9. It's still at least a contested fight there. Would have liked to see Valiant stick to the cart and at least find his way out of that. But man, what a game in particular from the DPS and the Outlaws. Dante finding a ton of solo kills on Sombra, something that is very hard to do. You need to have near perfect tracking to make that happen without team support. And Linkser as well, just coming alive. I mean, the highlight clip after highlight clip really for Linkser in this match. I think this is definitely going to be one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like one eternal scrappy fight that was going on there between both teams where you didn't really have a ton of full resets and resetups. I think it comes down to the idea that on watch point B, realistically speaking, you don't want to give the other team a time to breathe, so both teams just kind of keep hammering at each other.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think what it came down to also is we talked about that Nano Blade being a key to victory for the Valiant, given that they're running the Genji. But Blaster was consistently committing the Nano onto a Winston. I don't hate the decision because when the Blade is slow, sometimes you just need to play a high-tempo style. You just can't wait for it. But, in one case, the Nano on the Primal didn't really accomplish much. And then in the next case, he tried to save his Winston with Nano, but to keep him alive through the hack, but it just didn't get there in time. And that, I think, was really the painful moment for the Valiant, really where the wind got taken out of their sails.
Well, it's tied up 1-1, and today the action does not stop. The Watchpoint halftime show starts right now.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile.
And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Welcome to the Game Break, presented by Pringles. Wavy, Zoe here, once more joined by Costa as well as Reinforce, and the current score is 1-1 between the LA Valiant and the Houston Outlaws. Now, let's talk about the match. To start with, honestly, it looked like the Valiant was just a better team. Outlaws took a bit of a gamble. However, they did come back in the second map. Costa, what were your thoughts overall as the match just started?
Yeah, I think the first map was not indicative of how close these two teams are playing. The first map, the Valiant obviously caught the Outlaws off guard in the first round on Village, and the Outlaws just didn't really seem to adapt very well. Jake did a very good job of underlining the McCree, doesn't really do a good job of dealing with the Pharah and the Ashe at the same time. It's just a classic by the LA Valiant to go Pharah Mercy when your back's against the wall. It's what we used to do when I was on that team. It's just, you love to see it for me. It's like Jake's Junkrat going Pharah Mercy, that's me for Valiant. And then we went on to the second round, and it was super close. 99-99, the Outlaws had great positioning, but as soon as they lost the point, they really struggled to re-engage. I think the Valiant did a great job of staggering their ultimates and making sure that the Houston could never get that positioning, and that's why they ended up getting the first map.
Exactly. Well, when we headed over to Watchpoint Gibraltar, Reinforce, the tide shifted. You, in general, were impressed with how the Houston Outlaws have been looking like, not just in this game, but also in their previous match on Gibraltar.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at this team and say that they have been impressing somewhat. As I said in the Watchpoint pre-show, I think that last week's loss against the Washington Justice was a bit of a one-off for this Houston Outlaws team. I like the look they showed today on Gibraltar, where Dante played Sombra majority of the time. I think Hydration's Winston is honestly looking a bit better as well. He had some nice pressure onto KSP and KSF on the Genji, and enabled Linkser to really pop off on both the Genji and the Widowmaker. I think it was really nice to see Linkser come out on that Genji, because that is something we used to see back in 2016, back in 2017, when he was on teams like Creation even back then. So nice, a bit of a throwback for Linkser, and I think that's a really good sign for the Houston Outlaws as well, because earlier on in the season we were talking about the Outlaws and we thought, well, Linkser is obviously a core player, core part of this team, but he wasn't fielded as much, and it came down, I think we decided, was the self-confidence part that really wasn't there for Linkser. But now, back on the Widowmaker, popping off, wrapping up team fights, we saw some Genji and some nice Dragon Blade. So I really like how the Houston Outlaws are stepping up in general, and I like that Linkser is popping off to help Dante carry some of this load, and also Hydration improving on the Winston. So across the board, some nice improvements from the Outlaws, and I'm positively surprised.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that second half. But before we get there, I want to quickly take a look at our crunch time presented by Pringles Wavy. The Valiant on Nepal, they did take the Houston Outlaws by surprise. Gentlemen, please run us through.
Yeah, I'm just going to go talk about the Pharah Mercy again, because that's what I love to see.
It was nice. It was nice.
But it's a great comp. This is great scouting by the LA Valiant. We've actually seen this Symmetra Junkrat comp come out by the Houston Outlaws on Lijiang Tower on that control center as well. So I think this was understanding that this is probably what they're going to come out. They didn't want to do the hit scan. You see instantly Dante and Lynx are back off. They didn't really get the memo. The front line of the Houston Outlaws went forward while the DPS players are saying, we need to switch. You see Dante instantly run back to spawn, switch to the Tracer. I think Lynxer goes back and goes to the McCree, but they've already lost the team fight. So bad coordination by the Outlaws, but just a great play by the LA Valiant. They knew what they were looking for. They knew that they were going to catch them off guard and played aggressive.
Yeah. Generally, there are 3 types of compositions we see on Village here. One is the Brawl comp where we play on point, and then you have the Pharah composition where you try to poke from afar, and the Junkrat, of course. So I got some Florida Mayhem Season 1 and 2 throwbacks, seeing the Junkrat come out, like Twick and stuff. Good times. But yeah, the Pharah comp, really liked it.
Well, we don't have any subs coming into that second half as we're heading over to King's Row. So without any further ado, let's just head straight into the second half.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
It's 1-1 between the Valiant and the Outlaws after a crazy first half of gameplay, and Gibraltar, it was chaotic, it was scrappy. I loved it, Jake.
Yeah, those fights for second point on the end of second point on both sides were very, very close, hotly contested, and could have gone either way. So great heroics from both teams, to make those fights possible. Specifically, though, I think Lynxer really came into his own on Gibraltar as well with Dante. So the DPS for the Outlaws performing really well, playing, I would say, their historically best heroes. Dante on the Sombra, certainly a comfort zone for him, and Lynxer's Widow, something that he's played time and time again since the onset of the Overwatch League and even before that. So really impressive performances out of the Outlaws DPS. I think that's what really did it on this map. And, had this gone to third point, right, had the Outlaws lost second, that map was in real jeopardy. I think the Valiant had very good odds to close out if they kept second. So, again, 1-1, but that match was really on the wire.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with that, with the idea that the Valiant, I think, even though they wouldn't have had a ton of time, they didn't really have far to go on point C. So the victory condition for the Outlaws was just to hold before point C. They were able to complete that. But now we look forward to the next map. It's going to be King's Row. There's no substitutions, and based on what we've seen from the team so far, are you expecting any change up in composition, especially for something like King's Row, which is a little bit more favorable to holding your ground with tanks?
Yeah, I think this might be the first time in the whole series that we actually see the standard meta come out from both teams. The Outlaws, even when they did play it on Sanctum, they did it with a Lucio, which I think is a big change-up, relies heavily on the boops because you won't win the value game. So, for I think both teams, I think this is the time to go back to basics, down to the standard composition, and this is where we get to see who's actually better at it, who's more confident in this double shield mirror. That's my expectation. We'll see if it ends up being reality, though, as these teams, they have the opportunity to pick heroes, and especially that hit scan, it's open-ended. You could play the Ashe, you could play the Widow. We've seen different teams approach it in different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's still the interesting part here. We're done with our hero pool weeks. Now we're in our week prepping for the final Countdown Cup, but it also, the week you go back out of hero pools, there's still a little bit of change, Jake, because people get a little bit of experience, they try different things during the weeks where things are a little bit more locked down, and you still see some changes, and I'm curious to see what the final form of the meta is going to look like here as we head into the Countdown Cup.
Yeah, a little scouting from Hydration, but it looks like it will be a mirror match with Lynxer on the Widow and KSP on the Ashe, the only real difference here. Lynxer might like to take a shot and switch to the Ashe, though. I think it is possible to play Widow on this offense, but it can be hard. If you don't find a pick-off, the enemy is going to out-damage you pretty significantly on defense.
Well, yeah, just about what are you looking for? Are you looking for the one pick-off to make the fight easy, or are you looking for matching shield pressure? And Lynxer's response, match the shield pressure. It's going to be an Ashe mirror.
Yeah, okay, so now we do get to see this mirror match, which team is better. This could well decide the rest of the series here, as nice headshots from KSP, sets Hydration very low.
The Outlaws,
but instantly punished.
He gets punished immediately. Hydration just turns on him, and now the Outlaws up 6-5, and this is so tough for the Valiant. Once you lose your Ashe, the neutral game gets tougher and tougher, but okay, Lynxer gets cut down. And look at this, McGravy and KSF starting to break this open. And it might be what the Valiant need to bring this right back.
Yeah, they're finally resetting here. Dante, though, shuts down Lastro. And with the spot advantage for the Outlaws, that might be just the pick they needed. They have the opportunity to soft reset here if Meko can escape with his life, which looks like he's just barely going to be able to do. He's so low, but no BAP. It's very hard to hold here. So the Valiant, they're going to have to weather a very quick and aggressive storm.
The problem is they just don't have the sustain as they would if they had the BAP, so they need a quick pickoff. If they don't get that, the Outlaws have a huge advantage. Mecco right now on the point, but there's the Flux, 3 to the air, and there's the pickoff that the Valiant needed. Repel immediately down. And the Valiant now working the outskirts. No one's looking at McGravy, and McGravy's just doing so much in this fight.
Yeah, McGravy just went totally unchecked this fight, sitting on the high ground. It was a beautiful flank by him because I think if he doesn't play that aggressively, it doesn't generate so much value. I don't think he's going to be able to win. And nice little standoff here. That's a pretty great sight to see. Ash advancing with the scope on a Brig.
Well, you love to see it, but now it's going to stagger Linkser a little bit longer. And now you kind of look at the next fight. You got Flux, you got Blade. Is that what the Outlaws need to set this up? I mean, the Valiant look pretty stoked on the other end.
Yeah, they've got Bongo Blade for the Valiant, though, so I think that is to their advantage. KSF so far shut down, but this is his time to get a ton of value. He goes in with 20 HP. Oh, and he ends up paying with his life for that. I think that was a bit of an overextension by KSP. Now Outlaws surging forward, and surely that's the point A.
The Valiant got way too aggressive there. The Outlaws just waited, immediately punished when KSF went in, and as a result, point A going to go to the Outlaws, and this is where the Outlaws can turn the tables. They can go for staggers of their own. You lose Lastro that late in the fight. It's going to cost the Valiant so much room here on point B.
Yeah, I actually love this from Outlaws. They're going to charge forward and just attack the setups here because they know no Lastro means no sustain. You won't really be able to hold this position if you're the Valiant. So Outlaws get a little bit of poke utility, make sure that the Valiant have to set up as passively as possible. And Mecco, he's going to be harassing them on their entire advance here. I love this little forward poke. Now, though, the key fight is going to take place in this library corner, and that could very well decide the second point. Hydration and Dante, though, they've got Bongo Blade. They've got what they need. The question is, can Lastro and Rain deal with this? They have got Rally.
If you're the Valiant, you want an early pickoff. You need something to deny the momentum, and they get it again! McGravy finds Hydration, and the Outlaws' coordination is in shambles. The early pickoff just ruins everything the Outlaws were trying to set up.
Yeah, I think the synergy was really off time there for Hydration and Dante. The halt came in, but only after the halt pops does Dante pop the blade, so he doesn't get that instant swift strike combo on the halt that you really are looking for to start things off. So a little bit of missed synergy for the Outlaws. That timing is going to cost them because the Bongo Blade is one of your most powerful ultimates playing this composition, one of your most important combos. However, Valiant, they're essentially reset, only having the Flux to work with in this fight.
The problem is that the Valiant also get a lot more positioning off of this. The Outlaws had so much momentum. Now they have to go through point B the hard way. And the Valiant, they're more than willing to just eat the clock.
Nice Flux, but doesn't do too much, and Dante finds Dreamer. So Dante's now attacking the backline. This Genji duel in the backline is going to be worth a lot. But oh, KSF, that headshot on the Mecco, assisting his own Bob. I love the reflank from Valiant late in the fight here.
2 minutes and 18 seconds left for the Outlaws, and getting through here has been difficult. Hydration very low.
Hydration
able to stand up, takes down KSF. The Valiant now in a hot retreat. See if they can get away. They're still pretty healthy. They can delay till KSF is back in, but there's the halt. Dante looking to dash on in. Lastro out of the fight, and the Outlaws just chasing the Valiant down, not letting them reset at all.
Dante, dash after dash, and oh no, if Dreamer dies here, this is extremely costly. It's probably second point. We'll see if they like to commit for him. Looks like they are going to let him go. Would be a little bit too risky to go for a hard target like Orisa when their spawners are coming back. But now this is going to be the explosive fight that most likely is going to decide second point here. You've got both teams with the Bongo Blade, so a very, very hot, aggressive sword fight coming in. This is anybody's game, really.
Minute 30. Here for the Outlaws as they try and get through point B. Dante hanging on to the blade. The Flux is already down. 2 down for the Valiant. Dante gets to save the blade here. This is the best possible scenario for the Outlaws.
Yeah, that Flux from Mecco really did it. It just felt like Valiant, they couldn't commit their ultimates when the Flux was disrupting them in that way. So at least they hold on to the Bongo Blade, though. And despite Dante holding on to this blade, I don't know how important that is, really, because he doesn't have the supercharger to enable him. So how much value is he really going to get off a naked blade? It's tough to say. I think that's a very difficult task. So Valiant surely set to stabilize at this point.
2 minutes and 20 seconds left for the Outlaws. They can take a junk fight if necessary. As here comes KSF. Dante, definitely don't pull out the blade now. First to fall as the KSF blade does the work needed. But also for the Outlaws, you're kind of okay with this, right? Like, you kind of knew that fight wasn't going to be great to begin with anyways.
Yeah, I would say it's expected, but I do think that's exactly what the Valiant needed to accomplish. They win with only the Bongo Blade. That's what is really valuable for them. They hold on to the Flux, to the Bob, so they continue to maintain this ultimate advantage that has been a hallmark of their play throughout the series. They're great at holding on to ultimates and not overexpending resources.
Flux over and in. The Outlaws taking to the skies. McGravy gets Jex off it. KSF just moves in. Good, easy damage off the Flux, and the Bob for good measure. So the Valiant investing a lot, but getting a lot.
Yeah, it does cost them 3 ultimates, though, so I would say in contrast to the last fight that was very efficient, 3 ultimates for a winning fight when the enemy commits nothing. It's not really the best here. So as Outlaws get close to their Bob, to both support ults at the same time, this next fight looks pretty good. So I like this from Valiant. They have nothing in the tank. They're just going to go for some all-out, like, crazy aggression here. It's highly risky, but it could get them a fight win, especially with KSP in the back line.
Repel immediately falls. It's exactly what the Valiant needed. It was a gutsy play call, but man, does it pay off. The Outlaws were not expecting it at all, and now the Valiant are going to have some options for the next fight.
Yeah, I love that decision making there. You don't have anything to work with, so instead you go for some really surprising aggression. With KSP as well hiding all the way behind on that pub high ground. He's able to blow away Linkser before Linkser even saw it coming. So great work by the team of the Valiant, making something out of nothing. It's what you need to do, and now 40 seconds left on the clock. Next fight is going to be a little bit more difficult for the Outlaws.
Outlaws looking to set up the Ant Matrix down, so is the Bob. KSF still working the back line. Gets low, still able to get out. The rally in progress right now for the Valiant. Bob up soon to be out. Meko, though, goes for the Flux. The Immortality Field is down, but it's still not enough to save Rain. Meko laying in the damage from afar, and the Valiant right now looking to heal, looking to reset, and they take down Dante in retreat. That's quite good for the Valiant.
McGravy's still fighting on the card. KSF with Blade, Supercharger out, and surely this is the map here. What a beautiful cleanup by KSF. The fight, it really does come back to that beautiful aggressive play call there. Dante is going to be able to touch card here, but it's 1v6 for Dante. It's not really winnable in this situation. Fast heroes come out, but pretty much fight over here on Fast Point.
And this is looking to be the round, and I have to say, KSF's Genji has been so remarkably consistent here so far. The Outlaws are coming back in, trying to make something of it. Linkser's down. This is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, you've got the sustain, but you just don't have the kill potential. So Valiant, they're just still 6 up, right? So you keep fighting, 2v6, 3v6, 4v6, but you just never have that fight that's actually winnable in this situation. So good play by the Valiant, to be fair, to not overextend in that situation. Don't risk anything. Just stay on the card with your team and play for those support ultimates. But yeah, that aggressive play call, that's a high-level play right there, and that's the sort of thing you need to do when you're down in the ultimate bank. You don't have a strategic way to win, or rather, not to say this isn't strategic. You don't have like a classic way to win, just outvaluing your opponent with good ults. So instead, you go for some next-level aggression. You try to get early kills, and they do exactly that when they cut down Repel so early.
Well, particularly when you're running a composition that doesn't have anything obvious that's going to get an early pickoff, right? Where, when you get into metas and mirrors where it's a Widow on both sides, right? Sometimes you don't have to worry as much about being down in ult economy because you just have faith in your Widow, right? The Widow gets a pickoff, and suddenly, if you're up 6v5, it doesn't matter quite as much. But for the Valiant's case, and this is just replay, KSF's bigger blades here towards the end.
It's a beautiful sight on Genji. A bunch of players all low right next to each other.
Well, the best part about this is that the Valiant was super low and in retreat, right? Like, Meko had just used Flux, and the Outlaws thought they were cleaning up easy kills, but the Valiant had recovered just enough, set up the blade, and let KSF turn it around. But you look back to the overall flow of the game before that point, right, is that the Valiant weren't running anything that's going to necessarily get super crazy early pickoffs most of the time. So what do? Knowing they're down ults, they make their own opportunity. They go for something unconventional, and they try and prioritize getting first pick. And if you're able to get the first pick, Jake, that makes the ult economy game matter a whole lot less.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not listening because there's a Junkrat on the field, and Dante setting up for a nice cheeky flank. This is going to be an unexpected pick. I think the idea is to maybe shut down KSF's Genji and just offer that extended spam, but I'd love to see a comp switch coming out from the Valiant. They're going to do that right now. I think KSF, wow, so they're interesting. Looks like they're going to go for more of a semi-dive style. I don't love this the most. I think the Widow might have a good job against the Genji, or rather against the Junkrat, but D.Va, I don't think this is really the best hero. Yes, it can eat some Junkrat damage, but it means Meko is going to be very free to really be the true carry of this match.
Well, I think the idea for Widow here is that Widow can be pretty good against Ashe, and unlike other situations, you don't have to worry about a Genji heading in on the Widow. So I think that's why KSP is on Widow right now. Just wants to fight Linkser in that Widow v Ashe matchup. Realize that probably won't have to deal with the Junkrat all too much.
Yeah, the Ana as well for last are going to mean there will be a Nano Blade, but there is Dante shuts down the Genji. KSF gets aggressive and heavily punished for his efforts. As you said, though, it is kind of on KSP to find some opening kills here. Has a slight chance there, but you can see how much the tanks are focusing KSP. They don't want to let him get those free peeks. They know what he can do with a little bit of open space.
The other thing, too, is that the Widow versus Ashe setup definitely limits Linkser, where Linkser is playing the sightline super heavily, doesn't want to give up any sort of Widow v Ashe battle. It's not super favored a lot of the time. But here we go, the Valiant taking their opportunity, moving forward. The Outlaws bending back. The Junkrat's going to be enough. KSF is nanoed right now, but so far hasn't resulted in a ton. The Outlaws still at full strength, and Meko finishes off McGravy. Or Dante's down. 5 on 5. That's painful given how close to a tire he was. But if the Outlaws can clean up, it'll be fine. Here comes the Blade, though. KSF does not want to give the opportunity. Finds Repel, looking for more, dashes on through. That's 2, now 3 for KSF. And there's just a limit to how long the Outlaws could hold on.
Yeah, once Dante went down, then you didn't have that reliable answer to the enemy Genji. KSF looking very sharp on this hero. Managed to get something done without even the Nano on his Blade. He needed the Nano just to finish charging the Blade. But, you know, he used that distraction really well. The KSP went in for the complete YOLO flank, jumping in on the low ground behind the enemy team. KSP gets the clean up, and now on to second point with Riptire, though, in store for Dante. And you don't have a Batiste on the side of the Valiant, and that's normally, I think, the true counter to the Riptire is that immortality field. So Dante, he does have his work cut out for him. No Sigma either, so should be a good Riptire moment.
Well, he's stuck on the Junkrat for point B for now. The tire comes out and just use against KSF, but that's good enough for the fight win. My question here is that do you stand the Junkrat for point B? Because oftentimes people will swap.
I think the idea is just to make use of Riptire because it does give you that fight win, which is very worthwhile. Now KSP is running around in the back line, trying to shut down Linkser, and Linkser juking and jiving stays alive. We'll see if Repel can get back in time to continue to hold this choke, though. It seems like the Outlaws, they don't want to give up this crucial ground, especially not with Junkrat. This is a great place to be on Junk, where the choke point really makes you maximum effectiveness here. Dante puts a trap on the high ground. Might even go for some wild flanks here.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. The Valiant, though, for diving in off the halt, looking for the opportunity. Lastro hang on to the Nano in the back. KSF still continues to build the fight, slowing down just a bit. And KSF gets caught. Jexa turns on him. But oh no, Nano, Brigitte, it's back, Jake.
She's trapped, though.
Eldritch Horror moving forward. But no, Rain taken down. Both teams trading up. This is good for the Valiant. It's going to get him through the choke point.
Yeah, it will. It sort of gets the progress moving finally. However, this is very early on second, so the Outlaws are going to have a ton of time to reset. McGravy does have his self-destruct to work with, but honestly, I don't love this Diva pick here. I don't think it's the greatest answer to a hero like Junkrat. Like, yes, you can eat some of the damage, but it means that Meko is very free to charge up his ultimate, and the self-destruct is so hard to get value on. You're not only dealing with an immortality field, but also the double shield, also a Brig who can protect herself. So it's going to be on McGravy, but this is the tough one. He has to find a very perfectly timed bomb here.
Also of note here is that Dante's still in the Junkrat. I think even if Dante would have swapped, you built up the tire, you still use it for the next fight. Only about 2 minutes left for the Valiant. It still makes sense. And now let's see where Dante is going to let it roll. Meko pinging back, Flux. Now the tire, it's on the way. KSF, though, has Nano, has the Blade. KSP already out of the fight, so KSF has to respond. Gets hit with the rock, the immortality field ruining his day, and Dante finishes him off. Don't really know where the tire went in the middle of that, but the Outlaw is still seemingly okay.
I think probably just deading it for some tank damage there. It wasn't actually broken, at least not in the kill feed. Trapping the enemy Orisa. Dante's putting out incredible damage in this team fight. Finally gets slept. Someone stops his reign of terror. Rain going on his own reign of terror, but it's not quite enough here. Brig gets a couple kills, but eventually shut down, and Dante's getting a ton of value on this Junk. Yes, the tire wasn't huge, but I really think that the Valiant would be better served playing BAP and Sigma here against Junkrat. I think the drone in particular is one of the best answers against a hero like Junkrat that really relies on getting those big tire kills.
Well, the interesting thing is how quick Dante's been building it, too. 71%. Had the shutdown on the KSF, and I mean, that could be the last Nano Blade that we just saw, because I don't think KSF's going to build up the Blade in the next minute. It's possible, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah, he needs his team to win a fight sort of without the Blade. We'll see if they're able to do that. Valiant pushing through this front choke. Going to be eating a ton of pressure, and it already comes in. Supercharger comes out, instantly shut down, though, by Meko. Hydration gets a quick kill. And the rally from Jexa, I mean, this is just overwhelming. Everyone on the Outlaws is more than full HP right now.
And the Outlaws are just going to push forward. The Valiant, they're running out of options, running out of power here. And the Riptire, it's good to go, but it might not even have to be used here. KSF's gotten... Okay, Dante's still going for it. The tire on a long journey. Where's he
Oh,
gonna
on
fall?
some late kills.
It's
Oh,
over.
can he
3
get-
seconds.
Oh,
It's
he gets
against SB. And at 5 HP, Jake. 5.
Love it, and that reset on KSP is actually so painful because he's your raw damage, right? He's like the only hero that's going to offer real shield break, and I just feel like Meko is having an absolute field day not being matched by an enemy Sigma right now. He's charging up ultimates so quickly. Valiant, they have nothing in the tank here, so the Outlaws, this is relatively straightforward, I think, to win the map right here. Unless KSP finds some sort of ridiculous pick, Lastro finds a next level Bionade, this should be open and shut. Early bongo.
Yeah, the Valiant, they need the early pickoff, and they're not in the best position to get McGravy already low as the fight starts out. The Outlaws investing everything they have. Dreamer picked off. Lynx are over the top, breaking the shield as Meko just rolls forward. The Outlaws take King's Row, and now leading the series 2-1.
Jason drops a C9 in the chat when the fight was like clearly unwinnable for the Valiant. It's a nice little BM, but nice work by Dante. You know, I give it 5 stars. Quality Junkrat performance there. Not just the tires being successful, but the baseline junk. You know, he's getting the kills on the enemy Genji, shutting him down time and time again, doing what he needs to do. So, love to see that out of the Houston Outlaws, making the Junkrat work once again.
Yeah, and you know, it's not. People look down and go, "Hey, okay, Jake's retiring, becoming a commentator. Surely the terror of Junkrat on the Outlaws is over." And Dante just picked up the torch and ran with it, Jake, and this is a pretty good showing.
It's got my seal of approval for sure. That's a really solid game, I would say, by Dante, particularly stepping up there. And I love the versatility he's shown this series. He's had the Genji, he's had the Sombra, he's had the Junkrat, so showing that he does have that viability to play multiple heroes. And you know, talking with him earlier about the struggles of being a leadership calling player, you know, on a flanker. Well, Junkrat's the exact opposite of that. It's one of the best heroes to be that calling figure on, because you are typically staying with the team. You're typically focused on spamming shields, so your ability to call is actually much greater. You're not so worried about getting bursted down in the backline the way heroes like Tracer are. So could be potentially a little bit more comfortable for the team to play a style that lets Dante lead them and be that caller. So overall, the team playing really well. Meko unchallenged in the Sigma mirror. Don't do that again, Valiant. Like, please, don't do that again. I mean, I'm as biased towards the Outlaws as anyone could be, but you just can't let Meko do you like this.
No, definitely not. But we look towards the next map here, and this is something that is now a must-win situation for the Valiant to keep the series alive, force a map 5. It's going to be Volskaya Industries as our next map, and as we move to Assault, you know, you've seen some tendencies from both of these teams here so far. Do you think the general nature of Assault is going to lend itself to a Valiant comeback, or do you think the Outlaws are about to end this 3-1?
Well, I think, you know, there's some bright spots for the Valiant, which would be that, you know, on King's Row, on the Outlaws attack at least, when they played the Genji comp, it looked like the Valiant were just a little bit stronger there, able to close it out about halfway through third point. That is, like, I would say, a much better defense than average. King's Row is a map that very often we see full capped. It's actually pretty rare to be able to hold anywhere before the final checkpoint. I mean, capping in overtime is, I would say, about average on attack. So the defense was good from the Valiant when they played the mirror match. I just didn't think they had the right answers to the Junkrat. However, when we go to Volskaya, I don't expect to see that hero come out. Not really effective, you know, outside of the close quarters of King's Row. So the real question here is the Widow duel in my mind. Like, this is a map where Widow is really, really particularly strong. Like, Ashe is, I would say, a little bit more rare than Widow even, just because of the nature of the sightlines. Incredibly long sightlines where Ashe just can't really take the duel one-on-one.
Now, the interesting part about the idea of the duel is that I feel like between the two hit-scan players, we haven't seen a lot of direct interaction between KSP and Lynxer for a lot of this match, where it feels like both players focusing a lot more on fighting the rest of the team rather than, you know, harassing their counterpart. Where, yeah, they've kind of nibbled at each other from time to time, but do you think that'll change a little bit in Volskaya, where there's going to be more of a focus on, okay, I'm Ashe, but I'm going to heavily focus on denying the other Ashe? Or do you think it's going to be more the same, where both are just kind of playing around their Orisa and playing more the team-based setup?
Yeah. I mean, I think Ashe is a hero that's very unlike Widow in the sense that it isn't about isn't about dueling. It really is about just focusing on the shield trade. You're much more effective at grinding out tanks than you are at dueling. So yes, you'll try and kill the enemy Ashe, but only if the opportunity presents itself. And I'm proven wrong here, by the way, that I thought the Widow would be a dominant choice here, but both teams going to go with the Ashe. Lynxer as well, setting up a nice high-angle dynamite. It's a great way to get value in your pub games on Ashe. Line these up at home, and if this lands in the right spot, then essentially a free dynamite because the cooldown's back by the time you actually want to use it again. So first point, first fight, really going to be high impact here. Both teams want to get that initial advantage in ultimates.
Yep, and the Valiants, they're not going to be wasting a whole lot of time here trying to take the tempo advantage between the two sides. But now stalling out for a moment, waiting have to decide how to approach this. And you see McGravy going up to the top, and Linkser already finding Lastro. It's a big early pickoff, and it puts the rest of the Valiant in a tough spot. There's no more healing, really.
Nice little two-tap from Linkser. He is getting heavily pressured. KSF gets the counter kill, and another on a Dante. Ooh, KSF lighting it up with that quick dash reset kill, and we'll see if they're able to shut him down. They are in the end, but both DPS being cut down means there might be a little bit of a power play for Valiant with the spawn advantage. However, I think, yeah, their DPS died later, so it might just be a wash here after that first fight. But both teams showing that they have some teeth here.
Yeah, I think the problem there is that KSF died so late in the fight that it basically ruins the advantage of those early pickoffs. But still, some pretty nice stuff coming out from KSF. Now the Outlaws setting back up here on the defensive Valiant. They went more towards the left side the first time. See if they do that again as look to the side. KSP getting poked down a little bit.
Yeah, Ash is trading a little bit of poke because the tanks aren't yet committed. I like McGravy going to this high ground angle. His team's taking a lot of heat, though, while he does it. Hydration charges in and actually takes so much damage. He needs to get droned instantly. Hydration getting really heavily pressured right now.
McGravy did so much to start that out. Mecco, nowhere to go. Linkser, though, Bobbler in the fight, shuts down KSF before the blade can be a factor. And Linkser getting good poke in from the left. Now rejoins the rest of his team. Looking for the Sigma on the other side. A little bit of extra shield break. Dante, the blade is out, and 2 kills, 1 slice, but Dante gets immediately denied right after. The Valiant are not done yet.
Yeah, it seems like spawn advantage a little bit too much here as the respawns come in, allow Valiant to clean up this fight. And they do so with a relatively modest ultimate commitment. Outlaws committed everything, just trying to desperately hang on to that fight, but it's not enough. And now Valiant have 5 ults to work with, so the snowball looking exceedingly likely here. The Outlaws need to find some sort of big play, or else they're just going to get blown out of the water by the raw ultimate value coming in from the Los Angeles squad.
This is where you never want to be on a point B defense, to see the other team charging at you without a whole lot of options. I mean, think if you're the Outlaws here, you have a supercharger, use that to buy time, get a flux, and then hope Linkser gets a pickoff, because I think that's their best chance as they look into this. Okay, the Valiant, they're not even waiting at all. Supercharger is down. The flux comes out. They do get at least that, but Linkser's had the fight, and KSF nice and easy over the top. The Valiant snowball looking to be unstoppable right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just 5 ultimates to 2. That's sort of what happens. I mean, textbook execution by the Valiant with that early rally, but it comes back to that overcommitment trying to hold first point for the Outlaws. Hydration in full stall mode here, but it's just a matter of getting some time off the clock here for the Outlaws. I like the idea of committing to first point, but I think when you're going to commit that many ultimates, it's just not worth it in the end, because this snowball is deadly, and Valiant set a blisteringly fast time here.
Yeah, and I think the real problem there for the Outlaws, it kind of goes into the variability of the Assault game type, right? Is that sometimes you overinvest on a fight, the other team got to go away with the fight pretty cheaply, and then suddenly you're just stuck in this almost unwinnable scenario where the other team has everything and you essentially have just about nothing. And, you know, there's a handful of ways the Outlaws could have won that fight, but it wasn't a whole lot, and the Valiant just simply executed.
Yeah. I mean, I like that they committed the rally so early there. It's just an insurance rally. You have such a big ultimate advantage. Just pop the rally so that nobody gets, you know, too tapped on the way in. Doesn't get reset. But yeah, that was fairly textbook, I would say, in terms of the fight win. And just ultimates versus no ultimates. But going into the next round, I wonder if the Outlaws are going to be able to put up a better time. I mean, a better time is incredibly unlikely. That would be basically need to win all fights and just instantly cap. But just capping with more than a minute here, giving yourself some wiggle room to work with as we go into the overtime round. That's the Outlaws need to do. And for the Valiant side, they just want to end it right here. Get a full hold and get some momentum going into map 5.
Well, also, you look to the Houston side, you really don't want to go to map 5. Houston, as a franchise, does not have a great track record with map 5 scenarios. So I think if you're a Houston fan, you're screaming at the TV going, please, win now. Bring this one back, because you know what can happen on a 5th control map, and you know oftentimes it's not great for Houston.
Yeah, new roster, new squad. We'll see if they're able to shake that up, break that trend. It's got to happen someday if they are to become a really top team. Beautiful dynamite there from KSP, burns everyone, so charging up that ultimate very quick, and Lastro even shuts down Linkser, so this is looking very, very awkward here for the Outlaws, and oh, this is going to be a brutal first fight.
Yeah, not only is it brutal, but you look at the ults the Valiant are building off this. They're just taking their time, letting KSF build. And between the two teams, I mean, this is difficult, right? This is where you lose the first fight so decisively, it puts you in a hole that you might not be able to dig yourself out of.
Yeah, and KSP, look at that Bob charge. Almost 80% off the back of an explosive fight. Massive dynamite, followed up by just a ton of raw damage being pumped out. So the Outlaws, that's going to be really painful. One bright spot is that they didn't do any damage, so Repel has a huge lead on the Amp Matrix. That actually might be enough to open things up here.
All setting up the dash. KSF just about to the blade. Bob also reserved for KSP. The Outlaws just trying to get a little bit of a reprieve, and oh, it's so clean coming in from the Valiant. They're just able to walk at it, and they do it incredibly inexpensively. No ultimates used.
Just a beautiful initiation there. I love the way they're attacking from multiple sides in the Valiant. They look very comfortable in this map, very well practiced. And they're even going to change it up this time. Last time McGravy came in from the flank. This time he's just staying grouped with the team so that he can't be punished by something like a Flux from Meko. But overall, I mean, the Valiant just doing a way better job with their ultimates, which, to be fair, they've done all series long. They've looked really smart with the ultimate tempo, knowing how to play their advantages when they have them. So the Outlaws need to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, Linkser finds an early pickup. KSF doesn't want to give the opportunity. Pulls out the blade, gets rocked. Thrown back a little bit. Now the blade's going away, so the Outlaws have a great response to the blade coming out here from KSF. The Bob used also. So the Outlaws, I mean, they've bought themselves a much more even fight.
Yeah, to be fair, that is 3 ultimates for nothing, and both Flux is going to come out, both Sigmas dropping them at the same time. A bit of a wash, but somehow McGravy finds Repel. I think he didn't have the Immortality field here, and with some damage from KSP, that ends up being costly. Jexa taking a ton of pressure as well, so Dante finds one, rally committed, oh, and it's just lost. It's wasted, essentially, for the Outlaws. This fight is another reset for them.
I love what McGravy has been doing for the Valiant, where it seems like it's not every fight, but just where he sees an opportunity. We just see McGravy go off to the flank and just rip shot after shot into the Outlaws, and oftentimes there's not a great response.
I think what it comes down to there is that, yes, the Blade and the Bob came out from Valiant. They didn't get any kills, but they did force the drone. And when Repel didn't have his Immortality field, he just got crushed by the Flux. So that one ability is sometimes worth a few ultimates to force. It can be so powerful. And the flank from KSF wants to dash through everybody, and he will.
That's such a great way of building meter for the Dragon Blade. Great synergy with the Orisa. And the Valiant now, they're just going to rotate off to the side, let McGravy play the one flank on his lonesome, and now just buying time to the blade. But Dante, his blade's ready here and now. Jexe already down. Dante waiting, dashes forward, looking for the signal, trying to deal with McGravy. No! Has to put the blade away. KSF is out of the fight, though, so the Valiant not exactly cleanly through this here just yet. The Outlaws starting to get some progress, but the Valiant are still getting some delay, Jake.
Yeah, they're wanting to fight this out with Dreamer switching over to the Hammond. Linkser tries to jump out, but he's just burned to death by the Dynamite from KSP, who's just staying alive, keep fighting this out, and this looks like a full hold from the Valiant. Just a beautiful recontest here with Dreamer coming back in on the Hammond. Now the Outlaws are in full desperation mode. Dante, yeah, he's going to die late here, so the Outlaws looking like they're going to get full health. Looks like we are going to a map 5, much to Houston's chagrin here, given history, but Valiant have momentum right now for sure.
The Valiant are in the best spot possible. The Outlaws now looking for a touch and a prayer. Meko over onto a point. It's now in overtime. Outlaws, what sort of magic do you have in the tank? The Valiant in a great spot. McGravy holding onto the Flux is going to immediately use it. Punish Hydration. Take him out of the fight. The Valiant up the first 2 as the Outlaws straggle in, and you're down 3. I'm not sure there's anyone left that can make a miracle play here. Dante very far away from the MP. Linkser just caught by McGravy. And this is looking like the Valiant. They're going to hold. We're going to map 5.
Wow, Volskaya is just an incredible comfort zone, obviously, here for the Valiant. They played this map beautifully. The way I love their different approaches to defending on first point, attacking from multiple angles at the same time, but also varying that, right? Sometimes they're grouped up with their tanks. Sometimes McGravy splits to the flank. So for the Outlaws, you know, resetting over and over again, you're expecting things to be the same every time, but they're not. And because Valiant always approaches things differently, lets players like KSP and KSF get away relatively unscathed, just charging their ultimates, doing damage, having so much space to work with. So I just love that preparation from the Valiant. Clearly, they're really comfortable here, and it shows.
So if you're looking at the Valiant right now, let's say the Valiant are able to take map 5 and we had to declare a player of the match. Right now I'm really torn between both McGravy and KSF because I think KSF has just been so remarkably consistent. But on the same note, there's been so many key fights where McGravy has just found the right moment to go in and just get massive damage off the Sigma. And he's had pretty good fluxes as well. I think both these players have been playing out of their mind right now for the Valiant.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if the Valiant do take this series, we'll have to see how Map 5 goes in that regard. Personally, I favor KSF, honestly. You know, I think he's been putting in consistent work on this Genji that oftentimes has fallen short of wins. Oftentimes, Valiant hasn't closed it out, but KSF has been the consistent performer there time and time again. And now in a match where the Valiant, they are, you know, potentially going to be able to close this out as we do go into Map 5, then I think KSF's Blades, you got to give him credit. He's somehow finding it time and time again, even in situations where he doesn't have the nano boost. He doesn't have the supercharger. All he has is his wits and his skill, and he just somehow brings it out, makes it happen, and manages to work really well with his team at the same time. So I do think KSF's certainly been grinding. He's been in the lab, and it shows here. His skill level has really gone up on Genji. He looks pretty strong.
So Lijiang Tower is going to be our final tie-breaking map, and you kind of look at this from the Outlaws perspective where it's a scary proposition, right? It's like one of the most terrifying sentences you can ever say to an Outlaws fan. We're going to map 5 because it's tough. And, you know, given that the Valiant definitely got a bit of momentum there. I mean, holding first on Volskaya, it's a bit of a gut buster to the other team. You know, if you're in the Outlaws right now and you're giving a victory speech, or not victory speech, but a pep talk, it's saying, okay, we can do this, we can win map 5. What are you saying to the team right now?
Well, I think the focus should just be on the map, right? You're going to Lijiang Tower, a map that is very different than Volskaya Industries, and you know, the Assault game type, one of the weirdest game types. So the fact that Valiant is, you know, really good at that game type, really good at that map, it shouldn't deter you, at least in a strategic sense. Where the Outlaws have looked their best, with what I would say would be on Kings Row, you know, and on Gibraltar. And if you look to the successes that they've had, it's kind of mirrored by the maps we're going to see on Lijiang Tower, especially maps like Control Center, very close quarters. There are some geometric similarities to Kings Row there. Even we've seen other teams pull out the Junkrat on mid. It is possible here. So the Outlaws, they have a lot of options open to them. The most important thing, though, is just not getting mentally ahead of yourself. Don't start thinking about, you know, the fact that the last map went a certain way. Technically, it doesn't matter, right? Whether it was a close map and you lost or you got blown out of the water, doesn't really make a difference as long as you're mentally refreshed and going into the next map clean. And I think sometimes in a map like that, you just write it off. Just pretend it never happened, go into the next map with a fresh mental perspective.
And we're not going to be waiting long to go into that next map. That's right. No breaks for the most part here today. And it's all the better. Lijiang Tower loaded up, ready to go. And we'll see who's going to take it where, you know, don't forget what's at stake for both these teams, right? The Valiant, they're looking to rebound, get back into that upper echelon. And the Outlaws, who are 6-13 on the year so far, you know, it's a bit frustrating as you watch them because you see them play a whole lot of teams close, and then they just struggle at times in key situations. And being able to win a map 5 here against the Valiant in the situation, close it out strong, I feel like would be such a breath of fresh air to people that support Houston.
Yeah, absolutely, and they really need it, to be fair. You know, going into tomorrow, they're going to be playing the San Francisco Shock, and that'll be their final qualifying match for the Countdown Cup. So to give themselves good odds to at least be in position for that Countdown Cup, to be having a decent placement there, they really want to be taking this series, really want to be getting the map win here on Lijiang Tower. It looks like we're actually potentially going to see a Junkrat mirror match here. These are both teams that have used a Junkrat. Actually, I remember KSP playing it in the past on this map. So pretty interesting. I want to see how this one breaks down. Perfect match for me to cast.
Giving Jake not 1 but 2 Junkrats. I'm not sure Jake can handle this. This is too much excitement for one round, but it's happening. Junkrat versus Junkrat. And so far the Outlaws, a little bit more space control to start things up, but hydration again awfully low. Immortality fields forced down both sides, and Linkster finds KSF
wins the sim
for the
duel.
opening pick.
And Dante's going in. He wants blood. Beautiful aggression. I think the Rein just got a bit more value than Orisa in the mirror match. I mean, it's not a mirror match you normally see, but I think Rein's power to just send it down mid, even if Orisa generates more value over time, that's a quick fight, right? It's very explosive. It goes fast. So the fact that Rein just has a bigger initial shield advantage ends up mattering a lot, as now the choke, breaking this choke is extremely difficult, especially in the mirror here. Linkster has a massive advantage as well on that Symmetra shield wall, which could be pretty rough to break, as Valiant TPing aggressively here.
They're going for the teleport, but guess what? Dante's holding it back. He has the Tyrant. Doesn't even need to use it. Last run Dreamer just got plunked on moving in. And yeah, I mean, you're totally right. You mentioned the advantage here on the defense. Breaking into this does not seem pleasant, not even a little bit.
No, and Linkster's Symmetra, we've seen him have a ton of success in the past here. On Symmetra. Actually, it's a hero. I remember playing him. He had a great frag clip on Nepal Village, just carving them up with the particle beam. So I love to see this comp come out, and it's pretty funny to see this in the mirror. Like, this is incredibly rare. Usually, if one team brings this cheese out and the other one plays some standard hit scan, and it's exciting, but it's all the more fun, I think, to see the mirror, especially with the dynamics between Symmetra and Junkrat. It's a matchup in particular, I think, that can be so explosive, because you send that TP in, you try to group up your team and flank, and sometimes Junkrat's waiting there and just bursts your whole team down and splits you all up, and it's just complete chaos there. So far that chaos, it's been favoring the Houston squad.
I hope you're aware of all the glee in your voice as you're describing, essentially the quintessential Junkrat death trap. It's like, okay, and now Junkrat's going to sit here, wait for 3 people to head on in, and then blows them all up. I love Junkrat. That's basically what I got out of all that. But, hey, I also agree. I think it's great to see Junkrat have his time in the moment. But, of course, we do have a little bit of pause right now. McGravy, questioning, going, you're pausing. But, just a little bit of banter back and forth. Now, let me ask you, you're a player in this situation where you've been involved in pauses of all sorts, right? And you're in the spot here. You just lost the first fight. You have to re-engage into something that's defensively very good. What are you talking about now as you're almost kind of iced out?
Well, it's all about getting value to the ultimates here, and especially with the Batiste amplification matrix, amping up a Junkrat is terrifying. I mean, he can just one-shot your backline, so you got to be very careful and got to get maximum value, particularly out of the immortality field, especially with both Riptires about to be in play. Valiant, this time, they're going to break the choke relatively easily. Looks like Houston wants to play back on the point. Early Riptire from KSP, and actually both teams Riptiring, but Lastro shuts his enemies down.
Dante's gets deflated, KSP's explodes. Meko out of the fight early. The Outlaws now perhaps going to have to give up some room, especially with Dante falling in. Just like that, I mean, defensive position or no, the Valiant find their way through. They take it away back from the Outlaws. Now the Outlaws have to deal with the situation they themselves just found themselves.
Yeah, it does come down to the Riptire there. Finding the enemy Sigma is just about the biggest value you can get with the ultimate, at least in this mirror match. So nice work by KSP getting the most of that, and as well by Lastro. That was a really nice break on Dante's Riptire. Using the Amp Matrix just for that utility, hey, it's worth it if it keeps your team alive.
So the Valiant looking to make up for lost time, 58% to 18. Now to go a little bit further back. KSF has a Symmetra barrier, drops the ball, and Linkser falls early. Beat's going to get dropped. Not in time to save KSP, but the Valiant still taking the fight as a whole. The Outlaws not going to be successful this time, and if there's a silver lining for the Outlaws, at least they were able to save the beats.
Yeah, and it does force that sim wall out. Jexa likely holding onto this beat to deal with McGravy's flux, but ultimately that could be a wash. I think the ultimate to keep your eyes on now is the Shatter, actually. Both Rhines very close to that ultimate, and a big Shatter puts the enemies on their back, and you've got a ton of burst damage to finish off those kills, so it's going to be critical that this fight goes well. But look at those sim turrets. It's going to be awkward for Hydration to get through this choke.
Yeah,
they're just going to sneak by. I love it.
That's one way to bypass the car wash. Now Hydration. The Shatter is locked and ready, but the Flux is going to come in first. Makes things a little bit awkward for landing a Shatter, and Dante already out of the fight, so it's McGravy that takes away the option for the early Shatter. The Outlaws still with 5. Hydration still with the option, but so is Dreamer. The wall is down, and the Outlaws right now just kind of repositioning, Jake.
Yeah, essentially going to reset, but they are hunting down McGravy in the back line. Pick up onto Meko. It does come through, but looks like it's traded onto Dreamer, so both teams fighting it out. Tire gets 2. It's massive out of KSP. Oh, and that could be the round here. Oh, no. That's so painful for Jexa and Hydration to go down that way, because now you're looking at recontesting into one of the strongest defensive comps in the game.
The Outlaws running out of time here on round 1. 94% to the Valiant. And now the Outlaws, at least someone has to go over and touch. It looks to be Linkser. Gets onto the point. It's in progress. Meko, though, already down. 6 on 5 for the Valiant. Repel going to drop the Amp Matrix. The Valiant just need to avoid. Dante close to the tire, but not quite there yet. The Outlaws still working at a disadvantage. Repel out of the fight. Here comes the tire from Dante. It has to be big. Needs to be big. Over the top. Tits 2. But is it going to be enough? The Valiant still with the numerical advantage, and now you look to Meko, spinning for time, spinning for Houston's very life in the series, but overtime ticks down, and the Valiant take the first round.
Yeah, and despite the mid-fight going well for the Outlaws, typically that's high impact here, but once the Valiant got control of point, they just got their hooks in and never let it go. I like the inventive TPs from the Outlaws trying to make it to point, but every time it was punished, and particularly I think KSP just got a little bit more out of the Riptires that round, getting the opening kills, finding down the enemy Sigma to flip the mid, and then that big double kill to sort of close out the game. Pretty significant stuff. So we see McGravy here once again charging in the flank. He has been a huge performer for this squad.
All right, so now we head into a very dangerous situation for the Outlaws, as it has historically been. They're one round away from elimination. McGravy, like I said, he's been solid the entire series long, but now this is where it all comes down to the wire. Can the Outlaws reverse the curse? Or is this another map 5 that goes against them? The Valiant looking to take the initiative early. Meko down in HP early in the fight, but KSP the first to fall. Both teams down 1, 5 on 5. Valiant still hanging out in the Immortality field. KSF all the way back up, and down goes Jexa.
Oh, and what a counter by KSF. Oh, and Hydration keeps his friend alive. The body block from Hydration, it's just perfect. Somehow keeps his buddy up, and so, this might be a reset, but oh no, Meko booped off the map. Surely that's too much to deal with. Hydration got so much this mid, but it's just not enough.
So the Valiant maintain, they get first control, and now it's up to the Outlaws to rise above, lest history repeat itself once more. Hydration, though, pretty close to the Primal, and you know, the disparity between tank seps and the teams, Primal could be what they need.
Yeah, I gotta say though, this scenario is pretty dire. You're playing into a rally now with a full dive comp. You didn't really get too much Genji Blade off that last mid fight, so probably gonna be nanoing a Winston here. But the rally is just so great at sustaining through that, and KSP on the Tracer, so there's no vulnerable backline DPS like an Ashe that you could jump on.
Valiant hanging back, forcing Houston to make the first move. Propel has the nano, throws out the Hydration. Nice. Hydration takes down Lastro to start things out. Hydration gonna need to do a little bit more. Still hanging on the nano, hasn't used the Primal yet, and might not need to. The Outlaws 6-4. KSF though starting to strike back, has a blade. KSP goes off in the side, and the Valiant keeping this in contest. The Outlaws though still a little bit ahead. I think the Valiant might let this go, at least for now.
Yeah, and going for the greedy choice there on Hydration ends up paying off nicely there. He could have Primal to save himself, but has the intelligence and the confidence to actually just trust that his team's going to win after he dies. And now the Primal looking pretty valuable, although Valiant, they've got 5 ults to work with here, so especially that flex from McGravy going to be pretty scary.
EMP can be the great equalizer, though. Anytime you're down in ult economy, EMP, one good EMP, and it doesn't really matter if you can't press Q. Which means we look to Dante. Dante gonna drop the EMP, only hits 2, but Dreamer's immediately removed. That could be just enough. Dreamer's gone, but so's Repel. KSF, the blade into the back, denied. Meko able to stop it midway through, and Hydration gets the knockoff McGravy into the pit. The Outlaws well on their way to the retaking.
Pulse Bomb does come out though, finds Jexis, so KSP trying to keep this one in contention, but 2 from Dante as well, so he responds in kind here. Hack onto KSP, and wow, Dante, he's been such a game saver there. That EMP, by the way, it canceled the supercharger from Orisa. It never even came out onto the field. Dreamer's trying to fight this, but I don't think they can do this with so limited players. I mean, they're going to try with the Orisa Sigma. It's risky though.
I figure the Valiant just take a breather right now. You still have a bit of advantage, you still have a round in the bank. It really comes down to it. But now the Valiant, they're setting back up here once more. The Outlaws looking to take the initiative. The nano on the Hydration, it works out. Lastro just gets stomped again early on. And Hydration, I love the patience here. Doesn't go for the bridge, doesn't go for anything that could result in pickoff. Just secure the fight.
I actually love this choice by KSP to come out on the McCree, but I wonder if it's too little too late. It does offer great utility against Dante Sombra, but Dante's already gotten through this latest farm phase, so the real danger from McCree is when you're trying to farm EMP. Generally, it's a lot harder to deal with a Sombra that's just going to EMP and teleport out. And here, Dante's going to finish off his EMP charge and just probably head home. A little greedy there, but ends up working out fine.
The Outlaws 95%. It's up to the Valiant to make a response. Otherwise, we're going to a round 3. Dante drops the EMP, and it's going to hit Repel. Yeah, not the greatest EMP by any stretch of the imagination. The Valiant now have an opportunity to let the Bione hit onto the Outlaws. Hitting 6, but 12 through, not there immediately. Hydration now on the knockback, looking for it. Dreamer out of the fight. The Outlaws up 6-4, and Lynx are pulling out what could be the finishing blade. Takes down Rain, dashes into the White Room, gets taken down, but enough was done by the team as a whole that the Outlaws are on the verge of pushing this to round 3, and they do.
Great work by the Outlaws. It wasn't the biggest EMP, but the rest of the team came through, and they managed to win what I thought was going to be a pretty difficult round by them. So really impressive stuff, especially Hydration. I want to highlight that. Remember when he let himself die to hold on to the Primal? Well, the next fight, he's able to shut down McGravy with that exact ultimate. So it ends up being worth a lot, and we go to the ultimate stage here. Final round, final map. It's anybody's guess who's going to win this one.
Yeah, this is neck and neck between the both teams, and you look at the history, you go, surely the Valiant will find a way through, but maybe this is going to be one of those days where the Outlaws start fighting back against their Map 5 record. take this here and now, and what a blow that would be to the Valiant. Either way, it has been one heck of a series, and we're racing towards a conclusion here and now.
Dante going to be on the Sombra, KSF on the Genji, so that's a matchup that has really, I would say, defined the entire series. Dante Sombra, he has managed to get a ton of value where others haven't, so so far it looks like Valiant will be winning this initial trade on choke, but Dante, he's going to be setting up in the backline to potentially change that.
Dante hanging back, looking to build the EMP. The Valiant a little bit more powerful in the straight-up fight when there's not a hack involved or otherwise, so the Valiant more encouraged to take the initiative. For now, on the point, and Dante finds Lastro off the setup. Linkser down. Dante with another. Dante going wild in the back line. Not only giving the Silver Charge, but giving outright pickoffs. And the Outlaws, they're going to get first control in this round.
Yeah, I mean, KSF got a lot done, but Dante just did more. I mean, he's making the Sombra work. This is non-traditional. Most teams have preferred the Genji, you know, on every map, every stage. But I think Dante, he hasn't had the best games ever on Genji, but his Sombra looks, you know, as practiced as ever. So I actually love this. It's a heads-up play. It's what you need to do to be winning. And oh, if he can find this pick off, okay.
So close.
So clutch for the Valiant to keep him alive.
But even still, it's good build for Dante. Dante now, if the Outlaws slow play this just a little bit, is going to have EMP for this fight to build the economy of everyone else. This is such a tough spot for the Valiant and McGravy. Already going down low. Immortality field needed to save there. And Dante has the EMP. Everyone in the Valiant is clumped up. This could be so big. Here's the Flux. Is EMP going to come out? Dante waiting, drops it, hits 3. No, 4. Dreamer down. And Lastro out of the fight early. The Outlaws continuing their assault. The Flux, though, in. KSF still around in the fight. The Valiant looking to turn it back around. McGravy still a threat in the back. And the Valiant somehow, some way bring this back. KSF and McGravy do not fall in the initial fight.
Yeah, I think that's really on KSP just having a much faster charge on the Bob here. Links are only at 70%. Dante, once again, back on that farm game. He's such a nuisance. Even these losing fights, he doesn't die. He stays alive to just continue charging that ultimate, and that's why he's able to get these EMPs off so quickly. However, now it's going to be a little bit more awkward for Outlaws to retake. The Sombra could be that crucial hero, though, to potentially force point or find a hack on an enemy backliner.
The Outlaws on the way forward. They drop the supercharger early. They deal with the immortality field. Still under heavy pressure. The Valiant, though, go a little bit too deep. McGravy, this time punished. And no Sigma on the field. It opens everyone up for the Outlaws. Oh. And Linkser, one after another. Should be the Outlaws on the retake.
Yeah, Linkser finally coming alive here on the final map. That's exactly what they needed from him, and a quick flip. However, now, once again, this ultimate advantage just swings back and forth, both teams committing heavily for these retakes. My eyes are on Meko's ult charge. He needs to get this up before the aggression can come in from the Valiant, because an uncontested bongo, it could be deadly. However, Dante, I mean, the man almost has another EMP. He's a freak on the Sombra.
Meko very close to the Flux. The Valiant running out of time. 71% for the Outlaws. The Valiant need to take this fight now or they won't get another. Dreamer waiting. Supercharger down. The Valiant make the move. KSP connects. Finds Linkser early. Sends out the bomb. Meko dropped the Flux in the middle of it. Doesn't really work out too well. And the Valiant get the fight they need, courtesy of that Supercharger KSP connection.
Yeah, the instant headshot on the power of the Supercharger just blows Linkser away. Still, though, a long way before the Valiant can actually secure this map. And Dante, I mean, he's got another EMP online here. So despite having nothing else, the Outlaws, they can rely on Dante because this EMP might be unexpected, too. If McGravy commits a Flux and it gets canceled here, that would really be the nail in the coffin here. Outlaws probably just win this if they can get one clean cap.
It's all about Dante and the EMP relative to the Valiant as the Outlaws look to win the series in a map 5 victory. Is now the time. The hack comes out early from Dante. The one key thing for Dante here, Jake, do not die.
He's just forcing point, though. He's going to get the cap. Somebody has to stop him. I mean, you can't allow him to just cap like this.
Got it!
This is so good for the Outlaws. It buys them exactly the time they needed to get the EMP off in the end. And even though a recap comes in for the Valiant, it doesn't matter. Dante, he's set up in the backline once again.
Dante's ready to go. The EMP is out. Strikes 3. Dreamer in danger. Down he goes. KSF can't blade. The Bob finishes it off. And the Houston Outlaws, off a long setup, now back on the point. They take control. And now the Valiant, do you have a miracle left in you? McGravy to touch the point. The Outlaws, Linkser does it again. Strikes down KSP. And now it's just about delay for the Valiant. But that shot on the KSP from Linkser could have been it. KSF the blade It's going to have to be Gigantic. He's pushed back. The Immortality Field ruining the initial assault.
But wait.
Goes in, sets up McGravy and Dreamer.
No.
The Valiant are not done yet. The Valiant roar back in.
KSF.
And now the Outlaws at death's door.
Absolutely incredible stuff from KSF. That fight looked all but over, but the Blade just somehow gets the value there. Valiant crawling their way back into this series. Down but not out. Meko delaying on point, but the boops them in and they cannot touch. Oh,
it's happened again.
Tragic. Beautiful work by the Valiant, though. What a clutch.
The Los Angeles Valiant defeat the Houston Outlaws in Map 5. Oh, of all the Map 5 losses Houston has had, that's one of the most painful. They had that fight just about in the bag, Jake, and the Valiant, they were down to not even their last life, kind of a quarter of a life, and they stalled just long enough to bring it back. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah, great awareness, too, by the Valiant to play that fight slow and careful. Just touch point one time, another time, keep that overtime wick burning, and it bought time for KSF to get his Blade out. And honestly, when KSF went in with that Blade, I didn't think he was going to get much out of it. It looked like a really tough one, but his team supports him, his team gets aggressive, and Jexit goes out for the bash, but ends up finding himself overextended, finding himself out in no man's land there. So while heroics came out from both teams, it was the Los Angeles Valiant going to secure that match. And, to be fair, pretty incredible performance from them throughout, especially thinking back earlier to the series. That first round, they looked so dominant, and then on Volskaya, they really brought it together for an incredibly dominant round.
Well, that brings us to our player of the match presented by Xfinity, and this was a very close call, but it is going to be KSF. Just consistency, Jake, time and time again over the entire course of the series, and you love to see it, and it's something Valiant fans can look at and go, okay, that was good, more of that.
Definitely. I mean, he's been grinding, and it shows. The Genji looks really sharp, not only when he's got the Blade out, but also in the basic form with the Shurikens. Able to still get those dash resets, still find the opening kills for his team. I mean, we were hyping up Dante so much in that final round. KSF was also producing kills, also cutting down Linkser early, getting his team advantages in that way. So pretty impressive stuff from the Genji in particular. I love the way he combos with his team. He's always setting up for the halts perfectly. And ultimately, I think what it comes down to is how consistent he is. As you were saying, like, it's every single time he's getting something out of the Blade. Rarely did we see him overextending, going for more. He just gets whatever he can get out of the Blade. Sometimes it's a huge team wipe and a cleanup. Other times it's 1 or 2 kills and he backs out, stays alive. But that sort of understanding of his limits is what allows him to play at that top level where, when the first Blade doesn't necessarily wipe the enemy team, at least you live and you start charging the next one, compared to overextending and dying and getting completely reset, which is a really painful place to be. So the intelligent play from KSF, that wins out in the end.
And I think it's so fitting to be player of the match when you think back to how KSF called it out at the start of the day, saying there was only going to be one outcome to this match, and that was a Valiant win. And while, it got really close to being the other side of it, but it wasn't. KSF backed up his words, and the Valiant, I mean, there's wins that feel good, and I feel like this one has to feel great.
Yeah, I mean, and what an incredibly close series. We did get a pretty amazing one here, and I'm happy to see as we've gotten a lot of 3 Overwatch in our Fast Cassidy piece. We're finally rewarded with a great series. Both teams putting up a great showing, and ultimately it's Los Angeles Valiant walking away with the win. But it's not over yet today.
No, definitely not. We got the Watchpoint post-show heading right at you right this moment.
Overwatch League online play is brought to you by Xfinity. Experience gamer-grade internet with Xfinity X5.
And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renter's insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Welcome one and all to the Watchpoint Post Show. Zoe here, joined by Costa and Reinforce, and I think we all need to calm down very quickly. That was as close as it can get there at the end, and what a heartbreaking loss for the Houston Outlaws. They got so very close. Reinforce, what are your general thoughts of this match?
I mean, I don't know if Costa agrees with this, but like as a former player, you can sort of relate to how the Outlaws are feeling. It's like soul crushing because they were so close to winning. I mean, they're one McGravy like toe touch with the Sigma away from winning that match.
Nice
and
visuals.
Yeah, well, you gotta go with it. So it's obviously so heartbreaking. Dante Sombra was phenomenal, really, to close things out. Gave them an opportunity after being full hell on Moskaya. I like the Houston Outlaws across the board this series, really. They were as out-strategized to start things off on Nepal. But throughout the series, I think that they were a solid kind of team. But the Valiant just over and over came back, clutched it out, and had some good plays overall.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Johnny said about how heartbreaking this is. Everyone has these in their careers when they're a professional player of you lose matches you really don't think you should have lost, or you lose in the very last second. The heartbreaking thing that I have for this Houston Outlaws teams is this is the second time in 2 weeks. Like, they've really been getting kicked in the teeth a little bit. They are having improvements, but they just can't seem to get the wins. They look good. I really liked the Lynx to Dante combo of Dante being able to play the Genji and also flex over to that Sombra, and they felt comfortable and they looked comfortable. But I got to give it to the Valiant. They really rallied together on map 4 and 5 to sort of pull it all together. I want to give a special shout out to KSF. You know, he did get the player of the match, but we were in the pre-show. We were talking like they haven't looked good with KSF in the lineup on this Genji. He seems to be struggling. He doesn't seem to get that space. He's not getting those big blades. He had, I don't even know how many. I lost count. Big blades. Massive impact, and we saw it at the very last second. He came in clutch, pulled the blade, didn't die, did his job, and they ended up getting the win. So big props to him.
Absolutely. We saw a lot of different looks from both of those teams. What are your thoughts now? Is the meta playing out as you expected it to play out? Were there any surprises from your side?
No, I mean, it is a bit of a summer showdown kind of twist on it all. I think this series in specific had some wacky compositions due to the maps we saw played. So, for example, on Watchpoint Gibraltar, I think we're going to see some dive compositions. And then, of course, we go to Nepal Village, and like we have the Farah Mercy composition, because you can't play that there. Lijiang Tower, Control Center, we saw the Junkrat Symmetra come out. It was a good giggle. It was pretty entertaining. So, you know, I think it came down to the maps mostly, but for the majority of the time, we saw what we expected, which was the Ashe and the Genji and maybe some more shields than most people enjoy. So I think we saw what we expected. More Summer Showdown conversations, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, if we're looking at some individuals here, I want to quickly chat about hydration. We did see him on the Winston, as well as Ball, and of course Yorissa. Do you guys feel like he found his footing now as that main tank role?
Yeah, I think he's been doing incredibly well on this main tank. We had a lot of questions about his Winston. He seemed to have stepped it up. He seemed to have good positioning. Who knows if this is just because he was against the Valiant and they weren't punishing him as well. But it was a good look across the board. As you said, when we look at the faults of his main tank play, it's mainly around the Winston. That's because you just need raw hours and experience to really hit that next level. But his Orisa and his Wrecking Ball are great, and they definitely are at a league level.
Well, I would say the Reinhardt is the hardest to learn in that regard. I think that, but yes, his Winston has, you know, been subpar in the past, but yes, it is the Valiant, as you're saying, and maybe he doesn't get punished as hard as he should be, etc. But I think that his leaps were pretty good. Like, he targeted the right positions to leap to and put pressure on the right people. So that's a great sign. I think Gibraltar, primarily, I think Hydration can go back and look at his Winston play. And I actually think he did a pretty good job because of the pressure he applied to players like KSF on the Genji and KSP on the Widowmaker to open things up for Linkser. So I am pretty impressed by Hydration's improvement overall as a main tank moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, the Outlaws as a team, they do look much improved, and it's just that little bit at the end to close it out, which is missing as of right now. But there's definitely a lot of reasons to hope if you're an Outlaws fan. The first match of the day has been played out between the Philadelphia Fusion and the Dallas Fuel, and unlike the last match, that was a quick 3-0 victory for the Philadelphia Fusion. Costa, start us off here. How did they make it look so smooth?
I think they came in with a really interesting strategy. They went with last week's meta, which not many of us expected, with the Xayah. Fury looked incredibly good. They played this very aggressive dive style, and Dallas just didn't look prepared. I'm sure there aren't a lot of teams playing this style as well, so they were probably caught a little bit off guard, and the Philadelphia Fusion went incredibly aggressive. I like the adaptation of having Hisu in the lineup so he can go to that Sombra. It gives them another look if the Widowmaker or the hit scan isn't working, and Ivy impressed me on the Genji. But then you saw like the mass switches as well at the halftime. They can play the double shield. They can play the regular Genji. So this is a really tough team to beat, and this is actually the team that I think might surprise a lot of people to take the entire Countdown Cup.
Whoa, okay. You know, we got teams like Paris Eternal. We got the San Francisco Show.
I think they've been looking good, though. I think this is kind of a dark horse when you think about it, because obviously they're phenomenal, but we never really expect them to take down the Shocks or the Paris Eternals right now. But I think in their current form, they seem to have a good grasp of the meta and playing their own style.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Sombra is the interesting part of this lineup. And we have seen teams like the Paris Eternal play more Sombra as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the meta sort of evolves before the Countdown Cup, and if we'll see more Sombra in that regard, because I like what we saw from the Fusion when they did play Hisu on that Sombra, brought some aggression to the table, and Ivy as well, subbed in for EQO, brought some aggressive Genji plays as well. So now you're seeing that the Philly Fusion, they have two different playstyles, and they'll be a lot harder to predict. And Paintbrush, he kind of suffered in that game because it was a pretty brutal loss for the Dallas Fuel as well.
Do you feel like the Dallas Fuel should be beating themselves up over this, though, considering just
No, they're
how
2-1.
well the Fusion has been doing?
I think they... Oh,
God.
Well,
Didn't expect that.
The answer is yes, he is beating himself up.
yeah.
Sometimes it be
I
like
think
that.
Is that
though,
cold
yeah.
or warm water, do you think?
I would hope it's warm, otherwise he's going to get a cold. My thing about this is I would say yes, they should be beating themselves up about this. They need to be performing better against teams like the Philadelphia Fusion. I don't think anyone was expecting them to win, but this was not a close
You
series.
just said
across the board.
Fusion was a dark horse to win, and then you're
Yeah,
like,
but
you
I
should play
also-
better versus them.
No. Okay, let me explain why. I have Dallas Fuel at 5 in my power rankings. If you're going to be a top 5 team in the North American region, I want you to be able to at least be competitive or take a map off of the top 3 teams. Like, I expect you to have some form of good performance, and they just seem to crumble at certain times against these top opponents. They need... Going into the playoffs, if they want to be competitive at any level, they need to at least, show that they can take it to these other teams and adapt on the fly.
Yeah, but we did see some moments of brilliance from individuals on that Dallas Fuel, and they still have some time, to get ready for that Countdown Cup. Let's see if they can get it done. That was the second match of the day, or rather the first match of the day. Now, that wraps up all our matches. However, we still have some more things to discuss. One of those things being the MVP, how do you even call it? Awards? Here's
T-Mobile MVP checkpoint.
Exactly, all of what he just said. The MVP will, of course, be awarded to the best player in the league. These are all the important things you need to know right on your screen. The 10 finalists will be revealed next Friday already. We're going to have the fan voting, which will be open on Twitter and on OverwatchLeague.com through to August 28th. And the winner will receive not just the MVP trophy, not just $100,000 in cash prize provided by T-Mobile, but also, of course, the MVP jersey and that lovely patch for the 2021 season. And Costa, wouldn't you have loved to have a patch? Like just one extra?
Oh, yeah. I would also like to have $100,000,
but that patch,
unfortunately, unfortunately, I was a main support, and no main supports have ever gotten close, except for Lee J Gon now. My boy Lee J Gon, let's just give it to him. Let's help the main supports out. They deserve it.
Well, that's not how it works.
You know what?
Yeah, sure it is.
It might be how it works. I think very often we're praising the same players. So I want to take some time now to, hype up the unsung heroes. Some people would just kind of fly under the radar. Let's see how they will do going into our MVP race for the 2020 season. So, Costa, who you got for me?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about the main candidates that we expect for the MVPs, your Carpes, your Flatters, and all that kind of stuff, but we want to sort of highlight someone who has been phenomenal, but it sort of hasn't been talked about. And over the last week, we've seen a resurgence of this, mainly because of his stats. And I want to talk about Smurf from the San Francisco Shock. He has been ridiculous on the main tank. He sort of just does all of these things. Look at his stats.
Wow!
On Winston, he's just first in everything. Like,
Just the
that's
best
sort of...
sometimes.
If you ask a lot of people who the best main tank in the league is, Smurf probably doesn't come up as much as he really should. He's been phenomenal. He plays it all as well. So he should be in contention and talked about at least a little bit when you're talking about the MVP of this season.
That's oddly satisfying to look at.
It really is. How did he fly under the radar, you guys think?
Well, I think that he doesn't play the flashy heroes, right? He plays the Orisa and the Winston, and he's super good on them. But then you have Super, flexing his big muscles, playing the Reinhardt, big personality, big stream, etc. So you sort of forget that Smurf is actually consistently one of the best main tanks in the league, right?
Yeah,
so
just a bit of a god,
I have some question marks about Smurf's Reinhardt, is it on par with some of the best in the league, etc. But his Winston and Orisa is definitely up there.
Can't argue with the numbers. He's first. Just first.
First.
Straight out
Yep.
first. Reinforce, which player do you think has not been getting as much love as he should here on our MVP checkpoint?
Well, I think a lot of people have our dealings with recency bias. And getting over the recency bias, we have to remember how good Rascal has been throughout large part of the season, especially early on. His May was instrumental for the San Francisco Shock performing well early on in the season. And then we had Echo introduced in the middle of the season, and he was one of the pioneers on that hero, as he often is on heroes like Batiste last year as well, right? So I think that we need to give Rascal a lot of praise. I think he was a big reason why the Shock were so successful early on in the year, especially when Sinatro retired and Rascal came into this lineup as a consistent starter. Krusty was talking about giving him more shot calling duties, of course. And yes, his Genji hasn't been the best, and that's why he's not seeing a lot of play time, and that's why we've seen Teo in the lineup now. But I think that Rascal deserves praise for what he accomplished early on in the season, where he had some of the best May in the league, some of the best Echo in the league, and he also brought out a Torb in the May Melee finals to counter the Florida Mayhem, and won that finals because of that. So he's played a lot of different heroes and been really good at it, and a consistent performer for this Shock team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Johnny made a great point in recency bias. We seem to forget about the people that had so much impact earlier in the season. I think another person who sort of gets hit by this is Exy as well. Because of his break due to injury, we don't really talk about him as much as being instrumental, but we see him come back into this Paris lineup and just be incredible. So Rascal definitely should be sort of at least talked about when you're talking about MVPs for the 2020 season.
See, but that's what we're here for in our T-Mobile MVP checkpoint, to remind you of all the brilliance which has been going on all season long. So be open-minded and think back at the beginning of the season as well, when you're heading into the voting for our season MVP next week. For now, let's take a look at tomorrow's matches, as we have so many of them. Yeah, that's right. We're going to have overall of 6 Overwatch League matches coming at you tomorrow, starting at 1 a.m. PT, with the Seoul Dynasty going up against the Guangzhou Charge, followed by the London Spitfire taking on the Hangzhou Spark, and a last match over in the APAC region will be played out between the New York Excelsior and the Shanghai Dragons. Then we're having a very quick break, and we're back with our NA region. Paris Eternal and Washington Justice will kick things off for you guys at 12 p.m. PT. Afterwards, we're going to see the Toronto Defiant going up against the Vancouver Titans, and the last match of the day will be played out between the Houston Outlaws and the San Francisco Shock. So lots of matches to look forward to. Is there any specific one which tickles you, Costa?
Oh, yeah. You went for me first, so I get to say it first. It's definitely NYXL versus the Shanghai Dragons. That is the matchup. NYXL looked so good last week. They seem to be comfortable with Haxel, and that Genji and Shanghai Dragons have looked mortal. That is the match that's really going to set the tone for what to expect in the playoffs of the Countdown Cup.
All right, so Costa takes your picks. Costa takes your rankings. Like, what else is left here, Reinforce?
Well, he copied my hair too, so I had to actually get a haircut.
What? Hello?
Rough times, honestly, on the desk. Costa...
He might come for my accent next, who knows?
Hi, it's your Swedish favorite person, Costa.
I don't even know where to go from there. Any other games you're looking forward to, Reinforce?
Well, I actually think at 1 a.m. we got the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Seoul Dynasty. I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup as well, because you never know what the Seoul Dynasty is going to bring to the table. So,
true.
Stay tuned.
Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. It's all a mystery to all of us.
Stonks
definitely
and
a lot of exactly, and both in equal parts, and that makes it so much fun to actually predict these matches. Now we're gonna say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for joining us for a short but very sweet day of Overwatch League. We will be back again tomorrow, starting our pre-show at 11:30 a.m. PT. But for now, it's goodbye. Feel free to follow us over on Twitter at Overwatch League, at Reinforce, at Costa, and at Zombie. Thank you so much for watching, and see you very soon.
Bye.